In Victorian London, you didn't just pay to sleep, you paid to sit up straight all night on a wooden bench while a man with a stick smacked you if your chin touched your chest. Welcome to the penny sit-up, where the desperate handed over their last coin for the privilege of not freezing to death on the street. Hey, before we dive into this nightmare, if these stories help you fall asleep, hit subscribe so you don't miss any. Comment where you're listening from and what time. I'm always reading them thinking, wait, people in New Zealand listen to history stories to sleep. So get comfortable. Pull that blanket up. Adjust your pillow. You're going to need that comfort because we're heading to London, 1887, and there's nothing comfortable waiting for us there. Your eyes snap open to the smell of unwashed bodies and coal smoke. For a moment, your brain can't make sense of the dense, fetid fog filling your lungs. You're on a hard wooden bench in a cavernous hall packed shoulder to shoulder with other bodies. The Salvation Army's penny sit-up shelter on Blackfriars Road. You're instantly aware of the ache. Every muscle in your back screams from sitting upright all night. The bench has no back support, just a flat, splintered plank worn smooth by thousands of desperate bodies before yours. Your neck is stiff, your shoulders knotted. Unlike your pillow at home, there's no comfort here, just the constant battle against gravity trying to pull you into sleep. Oi no sleeping. The sharp crack of a stick against the bench beside you jolts your body upright. The monitor, a gaunt man with a face like a disappointed vulture, glares as he passes. His job is simple: make sure no one who paid a penny gets the luxury of actual sleep. That costs extra. I paid my penny fare, mutters the man next to you, a skeletal figure with hands like gnarled roots. Ought to let a man close his eyes for a bleeding minute. He's right, of course, but the rules of the penny sit-up are brutally simple. 1 penny buys you a spot on this bench until morning. No lying down, no sleeping, just sitting upright through the endless night hours, fighting exhaustion while surrounded by the sounds and smells of 200 other souls doing the same. The hall stretches before you, dimly lit by a few oil lamps that cast more shadow than light. In the murky darkness, you can make out row after row of benches, each packed with huddled figures. Men mostly, but some women too. Even a few children, though they're supposed to go to separate shelters. Everyone staring vacantly ahead or whispering to neighbours or just staring at nothing with hollow eyes. First time? The man on your other side leans in. His breath smells of gin and rotting teeth, but his eyes are surprisingly kind. You can tell he wasn't born to this life. There's something about the way he holds himself, like he remembers being someone else once. You'll get used to it. Name's William. Used to be a clerk before the cough took me job. He demonstrates with a hacking wheeze that sounds like furniture breaking inside his chest. Been on the streets 3 years now. How do you survive, you ask, genuinely curious. William snorts. Survive? This ain't living, friend. This is just not dying. He gestures around the room. Look at us, London's finest collection of human refuse. He's not wrong. The faces around you tell 100 different stories of downfall. The old soldier with one arm who stares at nothing, still fighting some battle in his head. The young woman with a hollow-cheeked baby hidden beneath her shawl, though children aren't supposed to be here. The once fine gentleman with perfectly polished shoes and a coat that's been carefully mended a dozen times. And the smell. God, the smell. It hits you in waves. Unwashed bodies, damp wool, the sickly sweet odour of disease, the sharp tang of urine from the overflowing bucket in the corner. No one has bathed in weeks. Some haven't bathed in years. In the winter, the Thames freezes and the public baths close. Even in summer, a bath costs money that's better spent on food. You've got to understand the hierarchy, William continues, warming to his audience. Penny sit-up is the bottom rung. Next up is the 2-penny hangover, where you get a rope to lean on. Proper luxury, that is. His sarcasm is as thick as the air. Then there's the 4-penny coffin, actual wooden box to sleep in, practically a palace. And you? Where do you usually sleep, you ask? William's face darkens. Whatever I can afford. Some nights, it's the streets, under a bridge if I'm lucky, doorway if I'm not. Those nights, the crushers, police, they'll move you on every hour, can't stop moving, or they'll run you in for vagrancy. So you just walk all night. Unless you want to end up in the workhouse. He spits the word like it's poison. I'd rather die in a ditch than go to the workhouse. The workhouse. The mere mention sends a ripple of tension through those nearby. Victorian England's solution to poverty, a prison for the crime of being poor. Work breaking stones or picking oakum until your fingers bleed, separated from your family, eating slop that pigs would refuse, sleeping on straw infested with lice. Last winter, William says, voice dropping, there was a woman outside Covent Garden. Crusher told her to move along. She had nowhere to go, see? Newborn baby with her, temperature well below freezing. They found her in the morning, frozen solid on a doorstep in 7 Dials. Baby too. The silence that follows feels thick enough to cut, not because the story is shocking, everyone here has a similar tale, but because of the collective, unspoken acknowledgement that could be any of us tomorrow. Your stomach cramps painfully, a reminder that you haven't eaten since yesterday morning, a half-rotten potato and some scraps from behind the butcher's shop on Fleet Street. Your mouth waters at the memory. Food comes at 5, William says, noticing your discomfort. Bread and tea, barely enough to keep a bird alive, but it's something. If you get it, mutters a voice from behind. Run out quick, they do. You turn to see a boy who can't be more than 14, though his eyes belong to someone much older. Street children are everywhere in London, orphaned, abandoned, or simply lost in the city's vast maze. Some have never known any other life. What happens at morning, you ask, realising you don't know the procedure. They kick us out at 6, William answers. Back onto the streets. Most will head to the docks or Covent Garden, try to pick up work. Strong backs can earn a few pennies unloading ships or carrying crates. Rest of us. He trails off with a shrug. Beg, steal, whatever it takes. The monitor passes again, stick tapping rhythmically against his leg. His eyes scan the benches for anyone succumbing to sleep. Finding none, he moves on, but the message is clear. Rest is not allowed. What's his story, you ask, nodding toward the monitor once he's safely past. William chuckles darkly. Harris? Used to be one of us. Got the job last winter, sleeps in a proper bed now, in a room upstairs, gets 3 meals a day and 6 shillings a week. For that, he'd beat his own mother if she nodded off. You understand the bitterness in his voice. When survival is this desperate, betrayal comes cheap. The hours crawl by, your back screams for relief, your eyelids feel like they're weighted with lead. Every few minutes someone is prodded awake with a sharp jab. Occasionally an argument breaks out, over space, over a stolen cap, over nothing at all. The tensions of poverty boil over in small vicious eruptions. This lot's civilized, William comments after 2 men are separated before their shoving match can become something worse. You should see the place on Doggett Street. Knife comes out every night there. A hacking cough erupts from somewhere in the room, a deep, wet sound that speaks of consumption. Tuberculosis. The deadly disease spreads like wildfire through places like this. You instinctively hold your breath, though you know it's futile. If the disease is in this room, chances are you've already been exposed. Girl died right where you're sitting last month, William says casually. Coughed blood all over, then just keeled over. They dragged her out the back. No family, so parish burial. Pauper's grave. He says this without emotion, just stating facts. Death is too common here to warrant special notice. Around 2 in the morning, the door bangs open, letting in a blast of frigid air. 2 men stumble in, supporting a third whose face is a mask of blood. The injured man's eye is swollen shut, his lips split. Got jumped, one of the supporters explains to no one in particular. 3 toffs out larking, took his boots. Again, there's that collective lack of surprise. Violence is just another hazard of life on the streets, as common as hunger and cold. The wealthy youth of London sometimes make sport of attacking the homeless, easy targets who can't fight back or report the crime. Could have been worse, William says quietly. Last summer, some rich boys set a sleeper on fire under the arches at Charing Cross. Thought it was a grand joke. Your stomach knots at the casual cruelty. In your comfortable bed at home, such stories would seem like fiction, too horrible to be real. Here, they're just Tuesday. The injured man is settled on a bench. No medical attention is offered. He'll live or he won't. Why do they hate us so much, you chaksish? He's genuinely puzzled. William considers this. They don't see us as people. We're like rats to them. Vermin. Problem to be solved. He shifts on the hard bench. Read in the paper last week, some doctor suggesting they should round us all up, ship us to Australia like they used to do with convicts, clean up the streets. But we haven't done anything wrong, you protest. The old man gives you a look that's half pity, half amusement. Being poor is the worst crime in England, friend. Always has been. The night inches forward. A clock somewhere strikes 3. The hall has settled into a restless collective discomfort. Bodies shift on hard benches. Coughs and snores punctuate the gloom. The monitor has retreated to a chair by the door, half asleep himself now, but still occasionally rousing to make his rounds. You find yourself nodding off despite your best efforts. Your chin drops to your chest, and for a blessed moment sleep begins to take you. Then a sharp pain in your ribs. William has elbowed you awake. Harris is coming, he whispers urgently. Look alive. You jerk upright just as the monitor passes. He gives you a suspicious look but moves on. Thanks, you murmur. William nods. We look out for each other, or try to. It strikes you that despite the misery, there's a community here. The lowest rung of London society has its own rules, its own codes of conduct. Help when you can. Share what little you have. Watch each other's backs. The man with the bloody face is now snoring softly, his injuries already crusting over. Someone has given him a cap to replace the one he lost in the attack. A woman 2 benches over is quietly sharing something wrapped in newspaper, some kind of food, with the boy who spoke earlier. These small kindnesses seem almost miraculous in a place defined by deprivation. Most folks would be surprised, William says, following your gaze. Think we're all thieves and cutthroats down here. Some are mined, but most just ordinary people who ran out of luck. What was your bad luck, you ask? William's face closes off for a moment, then he sighs. Wife died in childbirth, baby too, started drinking, lost my position. Lodgings went next. Once you're on the street, it's near impossible to get back up. He rubs his chest unconsciously. Consumption will take me soon enough. I can feel it in my lungs. He says this matter-of-factly, without self-pity. Just another reality of life at the bottom. A disturbance near the door draws your attention. A new arrival, a woman clearly drunk being turned away by the night porter. The penny sit-ups have strict rules about intoxication. The woman's slurred protests fade as she's pushed back out into the night. She'll freeze, you say, troubled. Maybe, William agrees. Maybe not. Gin keeps you warm for a while at least. Kills the hunger too. Another hour passes. The hall has grown colder as the night deepens. London winters are damp, the cold seeping into your bones in a way that seems impossible to escape. Your thin clothes do little to keep it at bay. Your feet in worn boots with holes in the soles, lost feeling hours ago. Around you, people have developed strategies for dealing with the prohibition on sleep. Some stare fixedly at a spot on the wall in a kind of waking trance. Others engage in whispered conversations that require just enough attention to keep them alert. Some simply endure, fighting their body's desperate need for rest moment by moment. Does it get easier, you ask William, getting by on no sleep? He shakes his head. Never gets easier. Just get used to it. Body learns to take sleep in little bits. 5 minutes here, 10 there. Not proper rest, but it keeps you going. A child cries somewhere in the hall, quickly hushed by its mother. Children aren't supposed to be here. There are separate facilities for women with children, but the family shelters fill up fast and nobody wants to turn away a child on a freezing night. The monitors pretend not to notice as long as the children are quiet. Worst part isn't the not sleeping, William continues. It's what it does to your mind after a while. Start seeing things that ain't there, hearing voices. Hallucinations, you supply. Fancy word for going mad, he says with a grim smile. Seen it happen plenty. Man starts talking to people who aren't there. Next thing, he's in Bedlam. Bedlam, the Bethlem Royal Hospital, London's infamous asylum. Another fate worse than death. The air in the hall has grown thicker, harder to breathe. Hundreds of bodies in an enclosed space with poor ventilation. The few windows are sealed against the cold, trapping the miasma of human misery inside. Your lungs labour with each breath. Unlike your warm bed at home, with clean sheets and fluffy pillows, there's no escape from the physical reality of poverty here. It's in every painful breath, every aching muscle, every rumble of your empty stomach. It's in the constant proximity of others. No privacy, no personal space, just the collective struggle to survive one more night. The clock strikes 4. 2 more hours until release. Your body feels like it's been beaten, every joint stiff, every muscle screaming. But there's a strange solidarity in the shared discomfort. No one here is suffering alone. Tell me something good, you say suddenly to William. Something from before. He looks surprised by the request, then thoughtful. Used to take my wife to Regent's Park on Sundays, he says finally. She loved the flowers, always said she wanted a garden of her own someday. His weathered face softens at the memory. Her name was Mary, prettiest girl in Cheapside. For a moment, you can almost see it. William, as a younger man, walking arm in arm with his wife through a sunlit park, their future still bright with possibility, before consumption and childbirth and poverty rewrote their story. What about you? He asks. What did you lose? The question catches you off guard. You begin, but William interrupts with a raised hand. Don't matter. We all had something once. That's what haunts us at night, the remembering. A bell rings suddenly, startling you. People begin to stir more actively, a current of anticipation running through the hall. Breakfast, William explains, such as it is. 2 Salvation Army workers appear with large metal pots and begin moving down the rows. Each person receives a tin cup of thin tea and a small piece of bread. The tea is lukewarm and tastes faintly of metal, but it's wet and contains a hint of sugar. The bread is stale, but edible. For many, it will be their only food today. You accept your portion gratefully. Around you, people fall on the meagre provisions with varying degrees of dignity. Some tear at the bread like animals, while others break it carefully into small pieces, making it last. Eat slow, William advises. Fools gulp it down, then their stomachs cramp something fierce. You follow his advice, savouring each small bite of bread, each sip of weak tea. It's barely enough to take the edge off your hunger, but it's something. As people finish eating, the atmosphere in the hall changes subtly. Morning is coming. Soon they'll all be back on the streets, facing another day of scraping by. Some look defeated by the prospect. Others have a determined set to their shoulders. They have plans, schemes, ways to get through the next 18 hours until night falls again. "What will you do today?" you ask William. He coughs painfully before answering. "Try my luck at Covent Garden. Rich ladies sometimes give pennies to old soldiers." He taps his leg. "Got a bit of shrapnel in the knee from the Crimea. Not enough for a pension, but enough to earn a bit of sympathy when I play it up." You realise he's not actually old, probably no more than 50, but life on the streets has aged him prematurely. His weathered face and white hair belong to a man 20 years his senior. "And tonight?" you ask. He shrugs. "Depends what I earn. Maybe back here, maybe the 2 penny if I do well." He gives you a sidelong glance. "Word of advice? If you can scrape together 4 pence, get yourself a coffin for the night. Actually sleep lying down. Make all the difference in the world." Before you can respond, the bell rings again, longer this time. The monitors begin moving through the hall, rousing anyone who's managed to doze off despite the rules. "Time to go," William says, standing with a grimace of pain. "London awaits." All around, people are gathering their meagre possessions. A spare shirt wrapped in newspaper, a dented tin cup, a carefully folded blanket too thin to provide real warmth. The few valuables they have are kept close to their bodies in hidden pockets or pouches hung around their necks. Theft is common, both in the shelters and on the streets. You stand too, your muscles protesting the movement after hours of enforced stillness. Blood rushes painfully back into your numbed extremities. For a moment, the world spins. "Easy," William says, steadying you with a surprisingly strong hand. "Gets everyone like that." The doors of the shelter are thrown open, letting in the grey light of dawn and a blast of cold air that cuts through your inadequate clothing like a knife. Outside, London is waking up. Cartwheels rumble on cobblestones. A distant factory whistle blows. The smell of coal smoke hangs heavy in the air. People begin filing out, a procession of the destitute returning to the streets that are both their home and their prison. Some move with purpose, heading for jobs or begging spots or the docks where day labour might be found. Others shuffle aimlessly, with nowhere particular to go and nothing particular to do but survive another day. William pauses at the door. "Good luck to you," he says, offering his hand. You shake it, feeling the rough calluses of a life spent working now overlaid with the grime of poverty. "Same to you," you reply. "Maybe I'll see you tonight." He smiles, revealing gaps where teeth should be. "Hope not. Hope you find better." Then he's gone, swallowed by the stream of humanity pouring out into the London morning. You follow, stepping onto the street. The cold hits you anew, seeping through the thin soles of your boots. Your stomach already cramps with returning hunger. The day stretches ahead, long and uncertain, but you're alive. You survived the night. In Victorian London, for the homeless, that's sometimes victory enough. As you stand there, trying to decide which way to go, a passing gentleman in a fine wool coat averts his eyes from your obvious poverty. To him, you're invisible, or worse, a problem, a blemish on his prosperous city. He doesn't see the person you were before, or the person you might still become. He sees only what you are now, one of London's countless homeless, fighting for survival 1 penny at a time. Unlike you in your warm bed right now, listening to this story, the Victorian homeless had no respite, no comfort, no security. Their struggle didn't end with the dawn. It merely changed form, from the battle against sleep to the battle against hunger, cold, disease, and the crushing indifference of a society that saw poverty as a moral failing rather than a social ill. You take a deep breath of the sooty London air and step forward into the day, already thinking about how to earn enough for tonight's shelter, perhaps the 2-penny hangover, where at least you can lean on a rope, or, if fortune smiles, the 4-penny coffin with the luxury of lying flat. One step at a time. 1 penny at a time. 1 night at a time. That's how survival works when you're sleeping rough in Victorian London. You stumble away from the penny sit-up with William's advice ringing in your ears. The streets of London are already teeming with life despite the early hour. Carts rumble by laden with goods, street vendors call out their wares, and factory workers trudge to their 14-hour shifts. And everywhere, the invisible army of the homeless weaves through it all. Your stomach cramps fiercely. The tea and stale bread from breakfast are long gone, burned up by your body's desperate need for fuel. You need to earn some coins today, or you'll be sleeping under a bridge tonight. Oi you, a burly man loading crates outside a warehouse beckons you over. Need a pair of hands for the morning, 6pence for 4 hours. 6pence. That's enough for food and a better shelter tonight. You nod eagerly, and soon you're hefting wooden crates that smell of tea and spices. Each one weighs more than seems possible, and by the second hour, your arms are trembling. But you keep going. 6pence means a 2-penny hangover tonight instead of the sit-up. It means actually being able to lean on something and maybe, just maybe, get some real sleep. The work finishes just past noon. The foreman flips you a 6pence, which you catch and tuck quickly into a secret pocket you've sewn into your waistband. In Victorian London, showing money is an invitation to theft. You find a street vendor selling pea soup from a cart. "Penny a bowl," the woman says, eyeing your ragged clothes suspiciously. The soup is watery and lukewarm, with more water than peas, but it fills the gnawing hole in your belly. You savour each spoonful, knowing it might be your only proper meal today. As you eat, you notice a young boy watching you hungrily from across the street. His face is so thin you can see the outline of his skull, and his eyes have that hollow look of chronic starvation. You hesitate, then beckon him over. "Here," you say, pushing the half-full bowl toward him. "Finish it." He doesn't speak, just snatches the bowl and gulps down the remaining soup so fast you worry he'll choke. When he's done, he wipes his mouth with a grimy sleeve and gives you a nod before disappearing into the crowd. That small act of kindness leaves you oddly warmed despite the biting cold. You've been on the streets long enough to know that such moments of connection are rare treasures. The afternoon stretches before you. With food in your belly and money for tonight's shelter, you allow yourself to simply walk, observing the city around you. London is a place of stark contrasts. Fine carriages roll past children in rags. Shop windows display luxuries, while beggars huddle in doorways. As dusk approaches, you make your way toward the area known for its 2-penny hangovers. The streets grow narrower here, the buildings leaning toward each other as if sharing secrets. The smells intensify: rotting vegetables, human waste, the sour reek of poverty. You find the place, a nondescript building with a small sign reading Night Refuge 2D. Already a queue has formed, men and women with that particular look of the long-term homeless. Gaunt faces, wary eyes, clothes worn to shapeless rags. You join the line, clutching your precious 6pence. The sun has set, and a freezing fog rolls in from the Thames, turning gas lamps into ghostly orbs. Your breath forms clouds in the frigid air. First time at the hangover, the man behind you has a thick Irish accent and one eye clouded with cataracts. You'll be missing your penny sit-up, I warrant. Is it that bad? You ask. He gives a wheezing laugh. Bad? It's a bloody marvel of human torture, so it is. But you can actually sleep. If you don't mind waking with a neck so stiff, you'll think you died in the night. The line shuffles forward. You can hear raised voices from inside, an argument over money or space or some perceived slight. The homeless may band together for survival, but tension runs high when resources are scarce. "Name's Patrick," the Irishman says. "Was a bricklayer till I lost the eye. Now I'm what the fancy folks call indigent." He pronounces the word with mock refinement. "What happened to your eye?" you ask. "Oh, lime mortar. Splash of it went right in. Didn't have coin for a doctor, so," he shrugs. "London's full of one-eyed bricklayers. We're practically a guild." The queue moves again. You're at the entrance now, a narrow door guarded by a man built like a prize fighter. His expression suggesting he enjoys his work a bit too much. "Twopence," he grunts, holding out a meaty hand. You drop the coins into his palm and he jerks his head toward the interior. "Through there. Find a space. No fighting, no stealing, no pissing on the floor. Break the rules, you're out on your arse with no refund." The room beyond is long and narrow, lit by a few smoky lanterns that do more to create shadows than dispel them. Along both walls run wooden benches, and stretched in front of each bench is a thick rope held about 3 feet off the ground by metal posts. And draped over these ropes, like laundry hung out to dry, are people. They lean forward over the rope, arms dangling, heads lolling, in a posture that looks profoundly uncomfortable, yet allows a kind of half-sleep. The rope supports their weight, keeping them from falling forward off the bench. "Jesus Christ," you mutter, taking in the scene. "Nah, he's got better accommodations," Patrick says behind you. "This here's for sinners like us." The room holds perhaps 60 people already, with space for 20 more. The smell hits you like a physical force. Unwashed bodies, damp wool, the sickly sweet odour of suppurating wounds, and the unmistakable tang of urine, despite the rule against it. You find an empty spot on a bench and gingerly take your place. The wooden seat is hard and cold, worn smooth by countless bodies before yours. The rope in front of you is surprisingly rough, made of hemp that scratches your hands when you grip it. Trick is to get your weight just right, Patrick advises, taking the spot next to you. Too far forward, the rope cuts into you. Too far back, you'll fall off when you doze. You adjust your position, trying to find that precarious balance. Around you, others are doing the same, or have already found it and hang suspended in that strange half-sleep, heads drooping over the rope. A woman across from you catches your eye. She's older, with grey hair, escaping from beneath a tattered bonnet. Despite her obvious poverty, there's a dignity to her posture, a refusal to be completely broken by circumstances. "First hangover?" she asks, noticing your awkward adjustments. You nod. "Put your wrists over first, then let your head drop," she demonstrates, her thin arms draped over the rope, hands dangling. Spreads the pressure, otherwise you'll have a rope burn across your chest come morning. You follow her advice and find it does help. "Thank you." "Martha," she introduces herself, "former lady's maid to a duchess, now lady's maid to this fine establishment." Her dry humour is unexpected. "What happened?" you ask, then immediately regret the question. On the streets, personal histories are often guarded, but Martha doesn't seem offended. "Duchess died, new duchess brought her own maid. At my age, not many families looking to hire, spent my savings. Here I am." She says this matter-of-factly, without self-pity. "You?" Before you can answer, a commotion erupts at the far end of the room. 2 men are arguing, their voices rising sharply above the general murmur. "That's my spot been sitting there every night this month," one shouts. "Don't see your name on it," the other sneers. "Move along, Grandad." The first man, indeed elderly, stands his ground. "I'm not moving. You can find another spot." The second man, younger and clearly stronger, smiles unpleasantly. "Well then." What happens next is brutally quick. The younger man shoves the older one hard. The elderly man stumbles backward, loses his balance and falls heavily. There's a sickening crack as his head hits the floor. For a moment, the entire room goes silent. Then the elderly man groans, a hand going to his bloodied head. The guard who took your money appears, alerted by the noise. He takes in the scene with practiced indifference. "Both of you out," he says flatly. "But he pushed me," the elderly man protests weakly from the floor. "Don't care. No fighting. Rules are rules." The younger man smirks, but his triumph is short-lived. "You too," the guard says to him. "Out." "I paid my tuppence," the young man protests. The guard steps closer, using his considerable bulk as a threat. "Want to make it harder than it needs to be?" The young man glares but backs down. He stalks toward the door, kicking over a small bundle that presumably belongs to the elderly man. Two other residents help the elderly man to his feet. Blood trickles from a cut on his scalp, but head wounds always bleed dramatically. He'll likely be fine, physically at least, but he's lost his shelter for the night, and at his age, a night on the streets in winter could be a death sentence. As they help him to the door, the elderly man looks around the room, his eyes finding yours for a brief moment. The naked despair in them strikes you like a physical blow. This is what it means to be homeless in Victorian London. Complete vulnerability, with no recourse, no protection, no justice. The incident casts a pall over the room. People avoid eye contact, hunching more deeply over their ropes as if trying to disappear. Violence is a constant companion to poverty, but no one ever gets used to it. "Happens every night," Martha says quietly. "Different people, same story. When you've got nothing left but your dignity, some folks get mighty protective of it." Your position on the rope is growing increasingly uncomfortable. The hemp digs into your wrists and chest. Your back aches from the unnatural posture. And yet, incredibly, people around you are managing to sleep this way. Their breathing deepens, occasionally punctuated by snores or muttered words from dreams. "Does it get easier?" you ask Martha, shifting to relieve the pressure on your chest. "The rope? No." She gives a small, sad smile, but the desperation to sleep eventually wins out over the discomfort. As if to demonstrate, her eyelids droop, and within moments she's drifted off, her body somehow finding equilibrium draped over the rope. It looks about as comfortable as sleeping on a clothesline, but exhaustion is a powerful force. You try to follow suit, letting your head drop forward, trying to relax despite the awkward position. Each time you start to drift off, your body jerks awake, a primal response to the sensation of falling. Beside you, Patrick has no such troubles. He leans on the rope with the practiced ease of long experience. Already asleep, his breathing raspy but regular. The hours crawl by. The lanterns burn lower, casting the room in deepening shadow. Outside, you can hear the occasional clip-clop of hooves or shout from a late-night reveller, but London's daytime roar has subsided to a murmur. Your discomfort intensifies as the night wears on. Your neck develops a crick that sends shooting pain down your spine. Your wrists, bearing much of your weight against the rope, grow raw and chafed. Your legs cramp from the awkward seated position. But around 3 a.m, something strange happens. Your exhaustion finally overwhelms your discomfort, and you slip into a state that's not quite sleep, but is no longer fully awake. It's a twilight consciousness where time loses meaning. Images flicker behind your eyelids. Memories, dreams, hallucinations born of exhaustion. You see William from the penny sit-up, but in your dream state, he's young again, walking through Regent's Park with his wife. You see the hungry boy who took your soup, but he's clean and well-fed, running through sunlit streets. You see yourself as you once were before whatever circumstances brought you here. A sharp pain jolts you back to full consciousness. Something has bitten you, a louse or a flea most likely. The two-penny hangover, like all cheap lodgings, is infested with vermin. They crawl through the wooden benches, nest in the rope, feast on the captive bodies, provided for their midnight meal. You scratch furiously at your neck, feeling the raised bump of the bite. It's far from the first, and your skin bears the evidence of nights spent in places like this, a constellation of red marks and scabs from constant bites. Don't scratch, Martha advises, apparently awake again. Makes them worse. How do you stand it, you ask, trying not to think about the insects that are undoubtedly crawling through your clothes right now, laying eggs in the seams that will hatch into a new generation of parasites. No choice, is there? She replies pragmatically. Besides, they're equal opportunity biters. Bite the rich same as the poor, given the chance. I find that thought rather comforting. Her perspective surprises a laugh out of you. Trust Martha to find class equality in the feeding habits of parasites. Around you, others are stirring, driven from their precarious sleep by similar discomforts, bites, cramps, the increasingly unbearable pressure of the rope. A man down the bench has developed a hacking cough that sounds like furniture breaking inside his chest. Another rocks slightly, muttering to himself, perhaps caught in some nightmare or simply driven to the edge of sanity by chronic exhaustion. Knew a fellow once, Patrick says suddenly, apparently awake as well. Slept like this for 2 years straight. Neck got permanently bent, couldn't straighten up if he tried, walked around looking at his shoes for the rest of his life. What happened to him, you ask? Walked straight into the Thames one foggy night. Couldn't see where he was going on account of always looking down. Patrick chuckles at his own dark humour. Least that's what I heard. The night crawls on. The discomfort of the rope becomes almost meditative in its constancy, a fixed point around which your consciousness orbits. Your body has moved beyond pain to a kind of numb acceptance. This, you realise, is how people survive such conditions, night after night. The body adapts. The mind detaches. You endure because the alternative is worse. Around 5 in the morning, a new sound penetrates the fog of your half-sleep. The scrape of a blade on wood. You open your eyes to see a wiry man moving from post to post, a knife in his hand. For a confused moment, you think it's some kind of attack. Then you realise he's cutting the ropes. "Morning call," Patrick mutters beside you. "Brace yourself." Before you can process his warning, the man reaches the rope you're leaning on. With a quick slash, he severs it. Suddenly deprived of its support, your upper body pitches forward violently. Only a desperate grabbing at the bench keeps you from sprawling face first onto the floor. All around, people are falling or catching themselves, a chorus of curses and groans filling the air. It's a brutal way to wake, but effective. Within moments, everyone is upright, bleary-eyed but undeniably awake. "Out everybody out," the knife wielder shouts, moving through the room. New day, new penny. Out you go. People begin gathering their meagre possessions. A spare shirt wrapped in newspaper, a dented tin cup, a carefully folded blanket too thin to provide real warmth. The few valuables they have are checked to ensure they weren't stolen in the night. Bloody hell, you mutter, rubbing your neck. It feels like it's been broken and poorly reset. Your wrists bear angry red welts from the rope, and every muscle in your back screams in protest as you stand. Told you you'd miss your penny sit-up, Patrick says with grim amusement, though I reckon you actually got some sleep, which is more than you can say for those poor bastards. He has a point. Despite the discomfort, you did manage some fractured sleep, certainly more than would have been possible sitting upright on a bench all night. Martha is already on her feet, adjusting her bonnet with dignity that seems out of place in these squalid surroundings. "Off to try for work at the laundry," she says. "They sometimes need extra hands on Wednesdays." "Good luck," you tell her sincerely. She gives you a small nod. "You as well. Perhaps see you tonight." "Not if I can help it," you reply, echoing William's words from yesterday. "Hope you find better." She smiles at that, a genuine smile that transforms her tired face. Hope springs eternal, even in the two-penny hangover. With that, she joins the shuffling line heading for the door, out into the pre-dawn darkness of London. You follow, your body a catalogue of new pains, your neck can barely turn, your back feels permanently bent, your wrists are raw, and yet you're better off than many. You slept after a fashion, you have a few pennies left for food, you're alive to face another day. Outside, the city is still wrapped in darkness, but the first hints of activity are stirring. Night soil men finishing their rounds, collecting human waste from cesspits, bakers firing up ovens for the day's bread, factory workers trudging to shifts that begin at ungodly hours. And everywhere, the homeless, emerging from shelters like yours, from doorways and arches, from wherever they found a few hours' respite from London's dangerous streets. Patrick gives you a nod of farewell before limping off toward the docks. You wonder what work a one-eyed man can find there, but survival breeds resourcefulness. Perhaps he knows a foreman or has some skill that outweighs his disability. You stretch, trying to work the knots out of your abused muscles. The two-penny hangover was a unique form of misery, but you can see why it's popular despite the discomfort. Sleep, even compromised sleep, is a precious commodity when you're homeless. A group of well-dressed young men stumbles past, clearly ending their night rather than beginning their day. They're drunk and loud, returning from some gentleman's club or late-night entertainment. One of them spots your ragged clothes and rope-burnt wrists. "I say, Jenkins, look at this specimen," he calls to his friend. "Must be fresh from the two-penny doss house." His companions laugh as if he said something terribly witty. One of them tosses a penny at your feet. "There you are, old chap. Start saving for a proper bed." More laughter as they continue on their way. Your existence nothing more than a momentary amusement in their privileged lives. You pick up the penny, pride is a luxury you can't afford, and pocket it, 1/3 of the way to tonight's hangover or half of a bowl of soup. In the economy of survival, every penny counts. The sky is lightening now, the dark blue-black giving way to grey. Another day begins in London, a city of stark contrasts. Extreme wealth alongside desperate poverty, often separated by nothing more than a street or a wall. You set off in search of work or charity, or some opportunity to earn enough for shelter tonight. Your body aches from the rope, your stomach already cramps with returning hunger, and your clothes are inadequate against the biting cold. But as you move through the awakening streets, you find yourself thinking of Martha's words. Hope springs eternal, even in the two-penny hangover. In Victorian London, for the homeless, sometimes hope is the only currency that never runs out. Unlike your comfortable position right now, with your head on a soft pillow and warm blankets surrounding you, the homeless of Victorian London never knew such luxury. Each day was a struggle for survival, each night a battle against the elements and exhaustion. The next rung up from the two-penny hangover was something both better and stranger: the four-penny coffin. If you could scrape together 4 pennies, you could actually lie down flat in a wooden box for the night, a coffin-shaped box that gave the accommodation its macabre name. For those with 4 pennies to spare, it was the height of luxury, a chance to sleep lying down, to give the body a few hours of proper rest before returning to the daily struggle for survival on London's unforgiving streets. Fortune smiles on you the next day. A brewery needs extra hands to move barrels, and the foreman takes a liking to your willingness to work without complaint. By mid-afternoon, you've earned a whole shilling, 12 pennies, and your body hums with the unfamiliar sensation of possibility. "You're a decent worker," the foreman says, counting coins into your palm. "Come back tomorrow, might have more for you." You nod eagerly, closing your fingers around the small fortune. 12 pennies. Enough for food, enough for shelter, enough for the night's holy grail. A 4-penny coffin. The name alone makes your skin crawl, but among the homeless of Victorian London, the 4-penny coffin is spoken of with reverence. A chance to sleep lying flat. A wooden box, yes, shaped disturbingly like its namesake, but still horizontal rest after days of sitting upright or hanging over ropes. You treat yourself to a meat pie from a street vendor, a luxury at 2p, but your body craves protein after days of thin soups and stale bread. The pie is mostly gristle and suspicious lumps in gravy, but it's hot and filling. You eat slowly, savouring each bite, watching people hurry past in the gathering dusk. A child stops to stare at you, a well-dressed boy of perhaps 8 holding his mother's hand. "Mama, why is that man so dirty?" he asks loudly. The woman jerks him away. "Don't look at such people, Charles," she hisses, not quietly enough. "They're not like us." You've grown used to such reactions in your ragged clothes, with dirt ground into your skin and your hollow-cheeked hunger. You're barely human to them, a problem to be avoided, a blight on their prosperous city. But today, with coins in your pocket and a full belly, their disdain rolls off you like water. Tonight, you'll sleep in a 4-penny coffin, the closest thing to a bed you've known in months. As darkness falls, you make your way to the Salvation Army shelter on Whitechapel Road. This one's different from the penny sit-up or the 2-penny hangover. It costs more, but offers what passes for luxury among London's homeless, the infamous coffin beds. The building is larger than the others, with an actual queue forming outside. You take your place, stamping your feet against the cold. The man ahead of you has a hacking cough that makes your chest hurt just listening to it. "First time in the coffins?" he asks between spasms. Noticing your nervous glance at the shelter, you nod. "Oh, lucky bastard," he says without rancour. "Been trying to save up for weeks. Always end up spending it on food instead." He pats his concave stomach ruefully. "Someday." The queue shuffles forward. At the door, a stern-faced woman in a Salvation Army bonnet takes your 4 pennies, scrutinising them as if suspecting counterfeits, before nodding you through. Straight ahead, second door. No smoking, no drinking, no fighting, out by 6 sharp. The corridor beyond is narrow and dim, lit by gas lamps turned low to save fuel. The floor creaks beneath your feet, wooden boards worn smooth by countless footsteps. The second door stands open, revealing the sleeping hall beyond. You stop dead in the doorway, taking in the sight. The room is vast, stretching away into shadows, and filling it, row after row, are the coffins, wooden boxes, each about 6 feet long and 2 feet wide, arranged in tight formation across the floor, in the dim light, with people already lying in many of them. The resemblance to a morgue is unnervingly strong. "Keep moving," grunts a voice behind you. "Some of us want to get to bed." You step inside, moving cautiously between the rows. Each box is identical. Raw wood, unvarnished, with a thin layer of straw at the bottom. No pillow, no blanket, though some occupants have their own ragged coverings clutched around them. Near the centre, you spot an empty coffin and make your way toward it. The wooden sides rise about 8 inches above the floor, just enough to create the unsettling coffin-like appearance, but low enough to step over easily. You hesitate for a moment, then climb in. The sensation is indescribable. After nights spent sitting upright or hanging over a rope, the simple act of lying flat feels like an impossible luxury. Your spine straightens, your neck relaxes, your legs extend fully for the first time in days. Despite the hard wood beneath you and the musty straw that tickles your neck, it feels better than any feather bed. Heaven, ain't it? You turn your head to find William, the old man from the penny sit-up, lying in the coffin beside yours. His weathered face splits in a gap-toothed grin at your surprise. "William, what are you doing here?" "Got lucky," he says. "Woman gave me 6pence for helping with her marketing. Straight here I came." He shifts slightly, wincing, though these old bones find even the coffins a bit hard these days. "Still better than the hangover," you reply, thinking of the rope-burned welts on your wrists. "God's truth," he agrees fervently. "Did the hangover last night then?" You nod, settling into your coffin. The straw crackles beneath you, releasing a musty smell that mingles with the ever-present odours of unwashed bodies and damp wool that permeate all homeless shelters. "How'd you find it?" William asks. "Brutal," you admit. "Got some sleep, but woke up feeling like my neck was broken." He chuckles. "Try doing it with consumption. Spent half the night coughing myself awake, other half trying not to fall on my face when the coughs hit." Around you, the room fills as more people are admitted. Soon, nearly every coffin is occupied. Men mostly, but some women too, and even a few children who should be in separate facilities but have nowhere else to go. The coffins are placed so close together that you could reach out and touch the people on either side of you. There's no privacy, no personal space, just a sea of humanity packed together like goods in a warehouse. "Bit crowded," you observe. William snorts. "Been in workhouses where they packed us tighter, 6 to a bed there, and not everyone alive by morning." The casual reference to death sends a chill through you. William speaks of it with the fatalism of someone who's seen too much of it to be shocked anymore. A bell rings, and the stern woman from the entrance appears at the far end of the room. "Lights out in 5 minutes, she announces. "Anyone found smoking after lights out will be expelled. Anyone found with alcohol will be expelled. Anyone fighting will be expelled and reported to the police." Her gaze sweeps the room, lingering on known troublemakers before she withdraws. Immediately, there's a flurry of activity as people take their last opportunity to move around, visiting the crude toilet facilities in the corner, arranging their few possessions, settling debts or grievances before darkness falls. "She means it too," William says. "Saw her throw out a man with no legs last winter. Crawled out on his hands, he did, right into a snowstorm." For smoking? For existing too loudly, more like. These places got their rules. Break 'em, you're out no matter how desperate you are. The gas lamps dim to almost nothing, leaving the room in near darkness. The only light comes from a single lamp near the door, where a night watchman sits on a stool, arms folded, keeping an eye on the room. In the sudden quiet, 100 different sounds emerge. Coughing, snoring, the rustle of straw as people shift position, whispered conversations, a child whimpering somewhere in the darkness. The symphony of human misery played nightly in shelters across London. But there's something else too. An undercurrent that surprises you. Laughter. Soft chuckles, muffled giggles, the sounds of jokes shared and stories told. Even here, in these grim surroundings, humanity finds ways to express joy. "Heard about the toff who fell in the Thames yesterday?" comes a voice from a coffin to your right. "Go on then," someone replies. "Seems he was showing off to some fine lady, walking along the embankment with his nose in the air. Walked straight into a lamppost, he did. Knocked himself backward into the river. Lady's dog jumped in after him, not to save him, mind, but to fetch his fancy hat." Laughter ripples through the darkness. You find yourself smiling too, picturing the scene. "Dog got the hat?" someone calls. "Got the hat, got a reward, got a warm place to sleep tonight. Better off than the lot of us." More laughter, louder now. For a moment, the shared amusement pushes back against the grimness of your surroundings. These people have nothing, yet they still have their humour, their humanity. "Settle down," the watchman calls irritably from his post. "Some folks trying to sleep." The laughter subsides, but a warmth remains. You feel it spreading through your chest, a sense of connection, of community. For all its horrors, there's something about shared hardship that binds people together. William shifts beside you, coughing softly. "Say what you will about these coffins, but at least the company's decent." You murmur agreement, feeling yourself begin to drift towards sleep. Your body aches from the day's labour, but it's a productive ache, not the bone-deep misery of hanging over a rope all night. The hard wood beneath you seems to soften as exhaustion takes hold. Somewhere in the darkness, a man begins to snore, a rhythmic soaring sound that rises and falls like waves. Someone else mutters in their sleep, fighting battles in dreams that can't be much worse than their waking reality. Your own consciousness begins to slip away, pulled down by the simple luxury of lying flat. But just before sleep takes you completely, a commotion breaks out near the door. "Please," a woman's voice, desperate and breathless. "My child is sick. We've nowhere else to go." "Rules are rules," comes the watchman's implacable response. "No admittance after hours. Come back tomorrow." "She won't last till tomorrow," the woman's voice breaks. "She's burning with fever. Please, I have money. 4p for me, 4p for her." "Not my decision. Rules are rules." There's a sound like a sob, quickly stifled, then silence, and the soft click of the door closing. Around you, people stir restlessly, disturbed by the exchange. No one speaks, but you can feel the collective tension, the shared knowledge that each of them is one misfortune away from being that woman, turned away when most desperate. "She'll try the hospital next," William whispers. "Won't take her either, not without proper references. Poor kid." The casual brutality of it hits you anew. In Victorian London, even a sick child is just another problem to be managed, another body to be kept out of sight. But before the thought can fully form, exhaustion claims you. Sleep comes in a rush, pulling you down into blessed unconsciousness. You dream of coffins that float like boats on the Thames, carrying London's homeless away to some kinder shore. In your dream, William is young again, his consumption healed, steering one of the coffin boats with a long pole. "Coming?" he calls to you, but when you try to answer, your voice makes no sound. You wake sometime in the dead of night, momentarily disoriented. The room is dark and filled with the sounds of sleeping humanity. It takes a moment to remember where you are. The 4p coffin, the closest thing to a bed you've known in months. Beside you, William sleeps fitfully, his breathing laboured and wet-sounding. Even in sleep, the consumption gives him no peace. You wonder how long he has. Months, weeks, days, and what will happen when the end comes. A pauper's grave, unmarked and unmourned. One more statistic in London's grim mortality tables. You turn onto your side, the straw crackling beneath you. Your hip bone presses painfully against the hard wood, but it's still better than sitting upright all night. At least here you can shift position, find small measures of comfort. The coffin is too short for you to stretch out fully. Your feet press against the end, forcing your knees to bend slightly. Your average height for a man of your time, about 5'7", but even so, the dimensions are constraining. Taller men must sleep curled like children or with their feet hanging over the end. A sharp pain in your ribs makes you slap reflexively at your side. Your fingers come away wet, blood, bedbug. The straw in these coffins harbours all manner of vermin, lice, fleas, bedbugs, and worse. You've been bitten before, will be bitten again. It's part of the price of shelter. Gets under your skin, don't it? Comes a whisper from the coffin on your other side. Not William this time, but a younger man with a Cockney accent thick as treacle. The bugs, I mean. Get in your clothes, in your hair. Never really get rid of them, even when you get back on your feet. You sound like you know, you whisper back. A soft chuckle. Been up and down more times than a sailor's wife. Name's Jack. Used to be a printer before the machines came in. Now I do whatever comes to hand. And you've gotten out of places like this 3 times now. Find work, get lodgings, save a bit. Then something happens. Sickness, accident, bad luck, back to the bottom of the heap. There's no self-pity in his voice, just a weary acceptance. But I'll climb back up, always do. His resilience impresses you. 3 times fallen, 3 times risen. Most never make it up even once. What's your secret, you ask? In the darkness, you sense rather than see his shrug. No secret, just keep moving, like one of them sharks. Stop swimming, you die. It's as good a philosophy as any for surviving in the brutal world of Victorian poverty. Keep moving, keep trying, stop, and the city will swallow you whole. A coughing fit seizes William, violent enough to shake his entire coffin. He sits up, hacking and wheezing, each breath a battle. "You all right, mate?" Jack asks with genuine concern. William can't answer, can only cough, deep, racking spasms that sound like something is tearing inside him. Finally, the fit subsides, leaving him gasping and spent. He spits into a rag, and even in the dim light, you can see the dark stain of blood. "Bad tonight?" he manages, voice raspy. "Had a cousin went the same way," Jack says quietly. "Consumption's a bastard." William nods weakly, lying back down. "Won't be long now. Can feel it in my chest, like drowning, but slower." The matter-of-fact way he speaks of his approaching death disturbs you, not because it's callous. There's no room for sentimentality when you're sleeping in a coffin, but because of what it represents. In this world, a man can die by inches in plain sight, and society simply looks away. "When I go," William says suddenly, "take my boots. Good leather them. Resoled last year." The unexpected bequest startles you. "I can't." "Don't be daft," he cuts you off. "I'll not need 'em where I'm going, and they're too good to waste. Promise me." You swallow hard. "I promise." Satisfied, he settles back, pulling his thin coat tighter around him. Within minutes, his breathing steadies as he falls back into uneasy sleep. "Decent of him," Jack comments. "Most valuable thing he owns, them boots." You nod, though he can't see you in the darkness. The gift is more than decent. It's a kind of faith, a belief that something of William will continue after he's gone, in a world that will toss his body into an unmarked grave. His boots walking on through the streets of London represents a kind of immortality. Sleep is elusive after that. You lie awake, listening to the sounds of the room, snores, coughs, muttered dreams, the occasional cry of night terror. Outside, a church bell tolls 3 times, 3 in the morning, the darkest hour. You think about Jack's philosophy. Keep moving, like a shark. It's exhausting to contemplate the endless struggle just to stay in place, the knowledge that one misstep could send you spiraling down to places even worse than this. Because there are worse places, the workhouse where families are separated, where work is deliberately pointless and crushing, designed to break the spirit as much as employ the body, the casual ward where you trade a night's shelter for a day of breaking stones or picking oakum until your fingers bleed, the street corner in winter where you might wake to find the person next to you hasn't woken at all, frozen in the night. Compared to those fates, your wooden coffin is a luxury. 4 pennies buys you flat ground beneath your back, a roof over your head, and the faint, flickering hope that tomorrow might be better. Morning comes too soon, announced by a bell that clangs with deliberate harshness. Around you people stir reluctantly, dragged from sleep back to their grim reality. Out in 15 minutes, calls the day watchman, a different man from the night before, but with the same implacable authority. Anyone still here at 1:15 gets reported for vagrancy. The threat is not idle. Vagrancy laws in Victorian England are harsh, designed to criminalise the condition of being homeless rather than address its causes. A charge of vagrancy can mean prison or the workhouse, both considered worse than death by many on the streets. You sit up, your body protesting after hours on the hard wood. Still, you feel better rested than you have in days. Beside you, William struggles to rise, his breathing laboured. Here, you offer him your arm for support. He grips it with surprising strength, pulling himself upright. Thanks, lad. Old bones don't want to move this morning. On your other side, Jack is already up and folding a threadbare blanket with military precision. Printer's fingers, he explains, catching your glance, never lose the habit of neatness. Around you, the room is a flurry of activity as people prepare to face another day. Some have nothing to gather. They came with only the clothes on their backs. Others carefully pack small bundles, a spare shirt, a precious book, a child's toy preserved through all manner of hardship. You help William to his feet, steadying him as a coughing fit threatens to topple him back into the coffin. You should see a doctor, you say, knowing even as the words leave your mouth how useless the advice is. William gives you a look that's half amusement, half pity. With what money? For what purpose? No cure for what I've got, not for the likes of us. He's right, of course. Medical care for the poor in Victorian London is virtually non-existent. Hospitals require recommendations and often payment. Doctors won't treat those who can't pay. For the homeless, illness is simply one more burden to bear until it eventually kills them. The 3 of you join the shuffling line heading for the door. You, William, and Jack, an unlikely trio formed by the random chance of adjacent coffins. Outside, the morning is grey and drizzling, a fine mist that soaks through clothing more effectively than a downpour. Off to try the docks, Jack announces. Always need strong backs there. And you ask William, concerned about his ability to survive another day on the streets in his condition. He shrugs. Same as always. Find a dry spot, try to stay warm, see if I can't beg enough for tonight's bed. Come with me, you suggest impulsively. The brewery might need 2 hands, not just one. William shakes his head. Kind of you, but I'd slow you down. Better on my own. He pats your arm. Don't worry about old William. Survived this long, haven't I? There's nothing you can say to that. In this world, each person's survival is ultimately their own responsibility. Charity extends only so far when everyone is one step from disaster. Good luck then, you tell him. Maybe see you tonight. Maybe, he agrees, though something in his eyes suggests he doesn't believe it. Keep moving, Shark Boy. This with a nod to Jack, who grins at the nickname. Then he's gone, shuffling away into the drizzle, a solitary figure bent against the weather and the weight of his illness. "He won't last the month," Jack says quietly beside you. "Seen it too many times." "Nothing to be done?" Jack shrugs. "Not in this world. Maybe the next will be kinder to him." He adjusts his cap. "Right then, I'm for the docks. You?" "Brewery, if they'll have me again." "Good luck to you." He offers his hand, and you shake it. "Maybe see you in the coffins tonight." "Hope not," you reply with the traditional response. "Hope you find better." He laughs. "Always hoping, us lot. It's what keeps us moving." Then he too is gone, striding purposefully toward the Thames, where ships from around the world unload cargo that needs strong arms to move it. You stand alone in the drizzle, considering your options. The brewery isn't far, and if they take you on again, that's another shilling, another night in the coffins, another day's food. If not, you'll need to find work elsewhere, or beg, or go hungry. The endless calculations of survival occupy your mind as you begin walking. 4 pennies for shelter, 2pence for food if you're careful, a penny for tea to warm your insides, always counting, always planning, always one misfortune away from disaster. But as you navigate the awakening streets of London, you find yourself thinking of Jack's words, always hoping. It's what keeps us moving. Hope is a luxury that costs nothing, yet remains out of reach for many, but not for you, not today. Today you have work to seek, pennies in your pocket, and the memory of a night spent lying flat, a simple comfort that felt like unimaginable luxury. In Victorian London for the homeless, sometimes that's enough to keep going. One more day, one more night, one more chance that tomorrow might be better. Unlike your warm bed now, with its soft mattress and clean sheets, the 4-penny coffin was a stark reminder of the fragility of human dignity. Yet even there, in wooden boxes packed side by side on a cold floor, people found ways to share stories, to laugh, to form connections in the darkness. The lesson of the 4-penny coffin wasn't just about survival, it was about the resilience of the human spirit in the face of crushing hardship, about finding hope in the smallest comforts and strength in the briefest moments of connection. But for those who couldn't even afford 4pence for a coffin, life was harder still. They were the lowest of London's poor, the crawlers who could barely muster the energy to move from place to place, subsisting on scraps and charity, sleeping wherever they could find shelter from the elements and the law. The brewery has no work for you today. The foreman shakes his head regretfully. Tomorrow maybe, big shipment coming in. You nod and turn away, trying to ignore the sinking feeling in your gut. No work means no money. No money means no shelter tonight. Back to the streets where the police move you on hourly and sleep comes in dangerous snatches between their rounds. You still have 7pence left from yesterday's earnings, enough for food at least, maybe even enough for a penny sit-up if you're careful. But as you walk away from the brewery, a bone-deep weariness overtakes you. 3 nights of interrupted sleep, first at the penny sit-up, then hanging over a rope, then in the wooden coffin, have left you exhausted despite their varying degrees of discomfort. The drizzle has stopped, but the day remains grey and cold. You pull your thin coat tighter, though it does little against the damp chill that seems to seep directly into your bones. Your stomach rumbles, reminding you that tea and bread at the shelter was hours ago. You spend a penny on a cup of tea from a street vendor, the hot liquid warming your hands as much as your insides. Then you wander, looking for opportunity, odd jobs, errands, anything to earn a few coins. But London teems with the desperate, all seeking the same thing. At the docks, 100 men fight for 10 positions. Outside shops, a dozen boys compete to carry packages. Near the markets, women with hollow eyes offer to carry, clean, mend, or perform less savoury services for pennies. By afternoon, your legs ache from walking and your hopes have dwindled. You find yourself in a part of the East End you don't recognise, narrow streets crowded with tenements that lean toward each other as if sharing dire secrets. The smell here is worse than usual, not just the usual London miasma of coal smoke and sewage, but something deeper, a rot that seems to emanate from the buildings themselves. Turning a corner, you come upon a sight that stops you cold. She sits with her back against a wall, so still you might think her dead, if not for the occasional slow blink. A woman of indeterminate age. She could be 40 or 70, impossible to tell beneath the grime and exhaustion etched into her face. Her clothes a little more than rags sewn together, layers upon filthy layers. Beside her sits a small bundle wrapped in a shawl that you realise with a shock is a baby. But it's her eyes that truly disturb you, vacant, distant, as if looking at something far beyond the squalid street. This is what the lowest of London's poor call a crawler, someone who has fallen so far that they can barely muster the energy to move from one spot to another. You approach cautiously. "Are you all right, ma'am?" Her eyes slowly focus on you, though her expression remains blank. "Watching the baby," she says in a voice like rustling paper. "Mother's working, penny for the day." You look more closely at the infant. It's unnaturally quiet, bundled so tightly only its face is visible. A tiny, pinched face with the same hollow look as the woman's. "Is the baby sick?" you ask, concerned by its stillness. The woman shrugs. "Most are. Live or die, not my doing. Just watch them for the penny." The casualness with which she discusses a child's potential death chills you, but you understand, in this world, attachment to anything, even a child, is a luxury the poorest cannot afford. To care is to invite heartbreak. "When did you last eat?" you ask, noticing the boniness of her wrists where they extend from her ragged sleeves. Again, that indifferent shrug. "Yesterday? Day before? All the same." You reach into your pocket, fingers closing around your precious coins. 7pence. Your buffer against the night, your hope for shelter. But looking at the crawler and the silent baby, your own problems suddenly seem less immediate. You pull out 2pence and hold it out to her. "Here, get something hot inside you." She doesn't move to take it, just stares at the coins as if they're foreign objects she doesn't recognise. "Can't leave the baby," she says finally. "I'll watch it," you offer impulsively, "until you get back." Her vacant eyes narrow slightly, assessing you. Trust is rare on the streets, but the promise of food is a powerful motivator. Finally, she nods and takes the coins with fingers so dirty the grime has become part of her skin. "Back soon," she says, rising with painful slowness. "Don't take him nowhere." She shuffles away, moving with the characteristic gait of the crawler, a slow, painful progress that seems to require enormous effort for each step. You've heard that some crawlers move less than a mile in a day, conserving their minimal energy for the essential tasks of survival. Alone with the baby, you crouch down to check on it. The infant is alive but listless, its breathing shallow. Up close, you can see the signs of malnutrition, skin stretched too tight over tiny bones, a bluish tinge to the lips. "Hey there, little one," you murmur, adjusting the shawl to better protect it from the cold. "Your mum coming back soon?" The baby makes no response, not even the reflexive grasp when you touch its hand. Something is very wrong with this child, but in Victorian London, medical care for the poor, especially the homeless poor, is virtually non-existent. Chances are this baby has never seen a doctor and never will. Around you, the street continues its grim routine. A group of children play in the gutter, using a dead rat as a ball. A man with suppurating sores on his face begs from disinterested passers-by. Two women argue loudly over a broken bucket. Normal life in one of London's worst slums. You settle with your back against the wall, the baby beside you. The crawler's spot offers a good view of the street while providing some protection from the wind. You understand why she chose it. One of the thousands of calculations the homeless make daily just to survive. Across the street you notice another crawler, an old man huddled in a doorway, so still he might be part of the architecture. These are the people who have given up on bettering their situation, who focus solely on existing from 1 hour to the next. Not living, just not dying. Unlike William with his consumption, or Jack with his determination to rise again, the crawlers have surrendered to their circumstances. They represent the last stage before death for many of London's homeless, a slow fading away, unremarked and unmourned. See them, crawlers? A voice startles you from your thoughts. A boy of perhaps 12 stands nearby, thin as a rail with sharp eyes that miss nothing. They don't last long once they stop moving, like sharks they are. Stop swimming, they die. Jack's words from the night before echo in your mind. Keep moving, like a shark. You from around here? You ask the boy. He nods. Born and bred in the East End, me. Know every brick and rat by name. He eyes the baby suspiciously. That yours? Or no, just watching it for someone. He snorts. Crawler's got you doing her job while she drinks your pennies, won't see her again till the gin's gone. The cynicism from one so young doesn't surprise you. Street children grow up fast or don't grow up at all. What's your name, you ask? Ned, he says, then gestures at the baby. That one won't last the week. Way it looks. Blue around the mouth already. His casual assessment of the infant's impending death shocks you, though you'd noticed the same symptoms yourself. Isn't there somewhere it could get help? A hospital or charity? Ned laughs, but there's no humour in it. Hospitals want references and money. Charities want deserving cases. Clean, sober women with hard-working husbands fallen on temporary bad luck. Not crawlers with gin habits and babies that don't even have names. It's a harsh assessment, but likely accurate. Victorian charity is heavily moralised. Help is given to the deserving poor who match middle-class notions of propriety and industriousness. The truly desperate rarely qualify. So no one helps them? You persist. Ned shrugs. Some try. Church, missions, Salvation Army. But there's too many, aren't there? Can't save everyone. System's not built for it. With that bit of street philosophy, he saunters away, already scanning for opportunities. A dropped coin, an unwatched pocket, an errand he might run for a penny. You sit with the baby, waiting for the crawler to return. Minutes stretch to an hour. The infant stirs occasionally, but makes no sound, too weak even to cry properly. Just as you're beginning to think Ned was right about the woman not returning, she appears at the end of the street, moving with that same painful slowness. But her progress is steady, and when she reaches you, you see she's carrying a small bundle. Got bread, she says, settling back into her spot with excruciating care. And tea. She unwraps a crust of bread and a small bottle of tea, both purchased with your tuppence. The baby needs milk, you say gently, and a doctor. She gives you a look that's equal parts exhaustion and scorn. Where am I to get money for that? Lucky if we eat at all. You can't argue with her logic. The cost of milk, let alone a doctor, is far beyond the means of someone who spends her days sitting against a wall, watching other people's children for pennies. Has it got a name? The baby? She shrugs. Mother calls it M. Short for Emma or Emily, maybe. Don't know. And yours? Your name? Sarah, she says after a pause, as if she's had to search her memory for it. Used to be a laundress before the cough took hold. You nod, understanding. Consumption again, the disease that ravages London's poor, spread by close quarters and poor ventilation, worsened by malnutrition and cold. The same illness that's killing William. How long have you been, you gesture vaguely, not wanting to say, a crawler to her face? On the streets? 3 years or thereabouts? Like this? She looks down at her immobile legs. 6 months since the worst of the cough. Can't stand long now. Legs won't hold. Her matter-of-fact recounting of her decline is somehow more disturbing than if she'd been emotional about it. It's the voice of someone who has accepted their fate so completely they no longer question or rail against it. Where do you sleep, you ask, noticing there's no bundle of belongings near her that might suggest a regular shelter. Here mostly, doorways if it rains, casual ward when the crushers make me move along. The casual ward, the free section of the workhouse where the homeless can get a bed for the night in exchange for hard labour the next day. It's considered a last resort by most, the work deliberately gruelling and pointless, breaking stones, picking oakum, grinding bones, designed to discourage all but the most desperate from seeking help. And winter? How do you manage in the cold? Sarah tears off a small piece of bread and chews it slowly before answering. Some don't. Find 'em frozen in the morning sometimes. Happen to me eventually, I expect. Soon as I can't move enough to find shelter when the real cold comes. Again, that chilling fatalism. Sarah sees her death as inevitable and imminent. Just another event in a life defined by hardship. The baby, M, stirs and makes a weak mewling sound. Sarah automatically adjusts the shawl, her movements gentle despite her apparent detachment. There is care there, you realise, just buried beneath the overwhelming burden of survival. Will the mother be back for her, you ask, nodding toward the infant. Always has been before, works in the match factory till 6, pays me a penny to watch the little one. The match factories, notorious for their dangerous conditions and the phossy jaw that afflicts workers exposed to white phosphorus. The women who work there earn pennies for a day's labour in conditions that slowly poison them, and still this mother is doing better than Sarah, who can't work at all anymore. You're kind to help her, you observe. Sarah gives you a look that suggests kindness has nothing to do with it. Penny's a penny, buys bread, keeps me alive another day. The brutal economics of survival, everything reduced to its most basic value. A penny for watching a baby that might die in your care, tuppence for a crust of bread and tea, fourpence for a wooden box to sleep in, life measured out in copper coins. As the afternoon wears on, you find yourself oddly reluctant to leave Sarah and the baby. There's nothing you can do for them. Your own situation is precarious enough, but the simple act of sitting beside another human being, sharing their space and time, feels significant. You tell Sarah about the penny sit-up, the 2-penny hangover, the 4-penny coffin. She listens with mild interest, though these accommodations might as well be luxury hotels for all the likelihood of her accessing them. Used to sleep in the parks, she says when you've finished, before the crushers got strict about it. Hyde Park was best in summer, cool under the trees. They don't allow it anymore? She shakes her head. Got new orders last winter. Move along anyone sleeping rough, especially women. Say, it's for our own protection. She makes a sound that might be a laugh. More like for the toff's delicate sensibilities. Don't want to see us when they take their carriages through. The criminalisation of homelessness, a constant feature of Victorian London. The poor are not just unfortunate but offensive, a blight to be hidden away rather than a problem to be solved. As the light begins to fade, people come home from work, if home is the right word for the overcrowded tenements that line the street. Women with exhausted faces, men with bent shoulders, children old before their time. The working poor, just one misfortune away from joining Sarah against the wall. A young woman hurries towards you, her face lined with worry. She can't be more than 20, but her eyes belong to someone much older. Factory dust clings to her hair and clothes, and her hands are stained a peculiar yellow red, the mark of the match worker. "Em?" she asks Sarah anxiously. "She all right?" "Quiet all day," Sarah replies, handing over the bundled baby. "Took the bottle twice." The young mother, for she must be Em's mother, clutches the baby to her chest with a fierceness that suggests she knows exactly how precarious the child's existence is. From her pocket she produces a penny, which she presses into Sarah's palm. "Thank you," she says with genuine gratitude. "Don't know what I'd do otherwise." Sarah nods, closing her fingers around the precious coin. Another day's survival secured. The mother notices you for the first time. "Who's this?" "Helped me today," Sarah says simply. "Bought bread." The young woman gives you a quick, assessing look, then nods slightly, the street's silent acknowledgement of a small kindness. "Best be getting her home," she says, adjusting the baby in her arms. "Night's coming on." With that, she hurries away, another shadow among many in the gathering dusk. You should be going too. Night in this part of London is dangerous for anyone, but especially for those who look vulnerable or out of place, and you still need to find somewhere to sleep. "I should go," you tell Sarah. "Need to find a place for the night." She nods, unsurprised. No one stays long with the crawlers. They are the stationary objects around which the river of London life flows, noticed but rarely engaged with. You hesitate, then reach into your pocket. You have 5p left, enough for a sit-up and a cup of tea, or almost enough for another night in the coffins. But Sarah will sit here all night, exposed to the elements, subsisting on that crust of bread you helped her buy. Decision made, you press 2 more pennies into her hand. "For shelter, if you can make it to 1. She looks at the coins, then at you, something flickering behind her vacant eyes. Surprise, perhaps, or a ghost of the person she was before the streets claimed her. "Won't make it that far," she says honestly, "but might get a bit of soup or gin to keep the cold out." You can't judge her choice. In her position, warmth, even the false warmth of alcohol, might seem more valuable than food. "Good luck," you tell her, meaning it. "And you," she replies, "watch yourself after dark. This part ain't safe for strangers." It's the most she said at once, and it strikes you as a kind of gift, a warning born of hard-won knowledge offered to someone she'll likely never see again. You nod and turn away, heading back toward more familiar parts of the city, but Sarah's face stays with you, the hollowed eyes, the resignation, the slow disappearance of a human being happening in plain sight on a public street. Darkness falls quickly in London, especially in winter. By the time you reach areas you recognise, night has claimed the city. Gas lamps create pools of sickly yellow light, barely penetrating the fog that rolls in from the Thames. The temperature drops sharply, your breath clouding before you. You have 3p left. Not enough for the coffins, barely enough for a sit-up and maybe tea in the morning. But the thought of another night upright on a bench, fighting sleep while a monitor prowls with his stick, is unbearable after what you've seen today. At least in the sit-up you'll be inside, protected from the wind and the crushers who move the homeless along. At least you won't end up like Sarah, too weak to seek shelter, slowly fading against a wall until one morning she simply doesn't wake up. Making your way to the nearest penny sit-up, a Salvation Army shelter different from the one where you met William, you join the queue of the desperate, men and women with hollow cheeks and vacant eyes clutching their precious pennies, hoping for a space inside before they fill up. You're lucky. There's room tonight. You hand over your penny and enter the now familiar environment of hard benches, dim lighting, and the monitor who ensures no one gets the sleep they've paid for. Finding a spot on a bench, you settle in for another night of discomfort. But compared to what Sarah endures, this is luxury. Compared to what awaits those turned away when the shelter fills, this is salvation. The man beside you has the rattling cough of consumption and the yellow-grey complexion that suggests liver disease as well. He nods slightly as you sit, a minimal acknowledgement of your existence. "Bad out there tonight," he comments, voice like gravel being crushed. "Getting colder," you agree. He nods, always worst in late November. Not the coldest month, but the one that kills the most. Bodies not used to it yet. It's a grim observation, but likely accurate. Those who survive November might make it through December and January, having adapted somewhat to the bitter cold. It's the transition that proves fatal for many. "Saw a crawler today," you tell him, though you're not sure why. Woman with consumption watching a baby for pennies. "They don't last," he says simply. "Once you stop moving, the street takes you. Saw a man once, sat down against a wall in Whitechapel, just sat there for 3 days. Nobody bothered him, figured he was resting or drunk. Third day, someone realized he hadn't moved at all. Dead the whole time. Sitting there with his eyes open, people walking past." The story doesn't shock you as it might have a few days ago. You've seen enough now to know it's entirely plausible. The invisible dying among the invisible living, unremarked and unmourned. The monitor passes, his stick tapping rhythmically against the floor, a reminder of his authority and your precarious right to be here. Your back already aches at the thought of another night upright, but you've done it before. You'll do it again. "Worked today?" your neighbour asks, making conversation to stay awake. You shake your head. "Tried the brewery, nothing doing. Might try the markets tomorrow. Always need porters at Covent Garden if you're strong." You nod, grateful for the tip. "Thanks." "Name's George," he offers unexpectedly. "Pleasure to meet you, George." He barks a laugh that turns into a cough. "Pleasure listen to you. Sound like a proper gent." You smile despite yourself. "Not so proper anymore?" "None of us are," George agrees philosophically. "Streets have a way of stripping that off you, like acid on metal." It's an apt metaphor. The veneer of civilization, manners, dignity, even identity, gradually eroded by the harsh reality of homelessness until only the bare metal of survival remains. The night settles into its familiar pattern of discomfort and interrupted dozing. Each time your chin drops to your chest, either the monitor or George nudges you awake. Each time you jerk upright with a fresh surge of pain through your spine. But your mind keeps returning to Sarah, sitting against her wall through the freezing night, to the baby with its blue-tinged lips, to the young mother working in conditions that are slowly poisoning her to earn pennies for her child's survival. At least you can work when there's work to be found. At least you can walk without pain, can seek shelter, can hope for something better tomorrow. Sarah has surrendered that hope, become a crawler, waiting for the inevitable with a fatalism that's both disturbing and logical. "What keeps you going?" you ask George suddenly. He considers the question, rheumy eyes, thoughtful. "Stubbornness, I reckon. Too bloody-minded to lay down and die." It's as good an answer as any. In a world that seems designed to grind the poor into dust, simple persistence becomes a form of rebellion. Morning comes as it always does, too soon and announced by a bell that seems deliberately harsh. You rise from the bench, your body a catalogue of complaints from the night spent upright. But you're alive, awake, and the day holds possibilities. Work at Covent Garden, perhaps, or some other opportunity that will earn you the fourpence for tonight's coffin. Outside, London awakens to a clear, cold day. The sun breaks through the ever-present smog, casting weak light on streets already teeming with activity. Cart drivers shout at each other, shop owners arrange their wares, children dash between legs on mysterious errands. And everywhere, the homeless, emerging from shelters and doorways, from under bridges and behind crates, joining the general populace yet distinctly separate from it. The invisibles, seen but unseen, present but unacknowledged. You wonder if Sarah survived the night, if she's still sitting against her wall waiting for the match worker to bring her baby and her penny. You wonder if William found shelter, if his consumption granted him a reprieve. You wonder if Jack found work at the docks, if he's one step closer to climbing out of poverty for the fourth time. But London is vast, and the homeless are many. Chances are you'll never see any of them again, each life a brief intersection with yours before continuing on its own desperate trajectory. With your last tuppence, you buy tea and a bun from a street vendor, the hot liquid and stale pastry, a feast to your empty stomach. Then you set off toward Covent Garden, following George's advice, joining the river of humanity flowing through London's streets. Unlike your comfortable life now, listening to this story in your warm bed, the Victorian homeless never knew where their next meal would come from, or if they would survive another night on the streets. Their reality was a constant struggle against hunger, cold, disease, and the crushing indifference of society. But they persisted. Like sharks, they kept moving, because to stop was to die, to surrender to the fate that awaited the crawlers, a slow fading away, invisible in plain sight, one more statistic in London's grim mortality tables. As you walk, you make a silent promise to yourself. You will not become a crawler. Whatever happens, whatever hardships await, you will keep moving, like William with his consumption, like Jack with his determination, like George with his stubbornness. You will endure. Because in Victorian London, for the homeless, endurance is the only victory possible. Covent Garden Market at 5 in the morning is a world unto itself. The cavernous building rings with shouts and curses as vendors set up their stalls, porters haul crates of produce, and buyers from restaurants and wealthy households haggle over the freshest goods. It's also a place of opportunity for the desperate. Every day, dozens of men gather at the edges, hoping to be picked for work, carrying, loading, unloading, whatever needs doing. The pay is poor and the work is backbreaking, but it's something. You join the crowd of hopefuls, aware of how you must look after days on the streets. Your clothes are filthy, your face stubbled, your body emanating the particular smell of unwashed poverty. But your back is straight, your arms visibly strong, and when a foreman points at you along with 5 others, you step forward eagerly. "You lot with me," he barks. "Shipment of apples needs unloading. Penny an hour, payment at end of shift." A penny an hour. If the work lasts the morning, that's 4pence at least. Enough for the coffin tonight, maybe even food as well. You follow the foreman to a wagon piled high with wooden crates, each filled with apples from the countryside. The work is simple but punishing. Lift, carry, stack, repeat. The crates dig into your hands, splinters embedding themselves in your palms, your shoulders burn, your back protests. But you keep going, driven by the promise of payment and the knowledge that dozens of men would gladly take your place if you falter. Beside you, a young man with a missing front tooth works with the steady rhythm of experience. During a brief pause while the foreman gives instructions to another group, he leans closer. "First time at the garden?" he asks. You nod, catching your breath. "Trick is to pace yourself," he advises. "They'll work you to death if you let them. Slow and steady wins the race." He demonstrates, lifting a crate with deliberate care, walking unhurriedly to the stack, placing it precisely. The work gets done, but without the frantic energy you've been expending. "Thanks," you say, adopting his method with the next crate. "It's still hard work, but less likely to leave you crippled by exhaustion. Been doing this 3 years," he explains. "Learning to survive is an education in itself." "You're homeless?" you ask, surprised. He seems too put together somehow. His clothes, while worn, are relatively clean, and he has an air of capability about him. He grins, displaying the gap where his tooth should be. "Not anymore. Got a room now, share with 2 others. Worked my way up from the streets, penny by bloody penny." Hope flares in your chest. Here's proof it can be done. Someone who's climbed out of the pit of homelessness through sheer persistence. "How do you manage it?" you ask. "Same as you're doing. Work when you can, save every penny, don't drink it away. Got lucky too. Found a regular spot here at the garden. Foreman know me now, pick me first most days." The conversation ends as the foreman returns. But the young man's words stay with you as you continue working. There is a way out. Difficult, dependent on luck as much as effort, but possible. The morning passes in a blur of aching muscles and sweat despite the cold. By noon, when the foreman calls a halt, you've unloaded hundreds of crates. Your hands are raw, your shoulders feel dislocated, and your lower back throbs with each movement. But when he counts 4 pennies into your palm, the pain recedes to background noise. 4 pennies, enough for the coffin tonight, enough for tea and bread tomorrow morning. A small fortune in the economy of the street. "Back tomorrow if you want," the foreman tells you. "6 sharp. Don't be late." You nod eagerly. "I'll be here." Leaving the market, your body aching but your spirit surprisingly buoyant, you find a cheap eating house that caters to market workers and the poor. A penny buys you a bowl of soup with actual chunks of vegetable floating in it, a feast compared to the thin gruel of the shelters. You eat slowly, savouring each spoonful, watching the life of London flow past the grimy window. With a full belly and money for tonight's shelter, the world seems less grim than it did yesterday. You understand now why Jack spoke of rising and falling, of the cycle of poverty. These small victories make hope possible, even if hardship inevitably follows. The eating house is warm, tempting you to linger, but staying too long with only one purchase is frowned upon. Reluctantly, you return to the cold street, wondering how to pass the hours until the coffin shelter opens for the night. Wandering through a slightly better part of the city, you pass a church where a small crowd has gathered. A sign announces charity distribution and hot tea for the deserving poor. Your appearance might disqualify you as deserving in the eyes of Victorian charity, but the promise of hot tea is irresistible. You join the queue, keeping your head down to avoid drawing attention to your obvious poverty. Ahead, a clergyman and several well-dressed ladies are handing out packets wrapped in brown paper, along with cups of steaming tea. "Move along there," a sharp voice calls. "Form an orderly line." The speaker is a middle-aged woman in a severe black dress, her face pinched with the particular expression of someone who believes poverty is a moral failing rather than a circumstance. She eyes each recipient suspiciously, as if expecting them to suddenly reveal their secret wealth and comfort. When your turn comes, she gives you a particularly thorough examination. "You're new," she states, rather than asks. "Where do you reside?" The question is a trap, Admit to homelessness and you're deemed undeserving. Lie and you risk being caught out. Currently between lodgings, ma'am, you reply, striking a careful balance. Seeking work at Covent Garden. She sniffs, unconvinced but unable to directly contradict you. Very well. 1 packet, 1 cup. Move along quickly. The tea is hot and sweet, instantly warming you from the inside. The packet contains a thick slice of bread, a small piece of cheese, and, luxury of luxuries, an apple. Food for later, a buffer against hunger. You thank the lady, who acknowledges you with a curt nod, already focused on the next person in line. Charity in Victorian England is often like this, given grudgingly with moral judgment attached, but vital nonetheless to those on the edge of survival. Finding a relatively clean doorstep to sit on, you sip your tea and observe the street life around you. A group of ragged children play a game with stones and a piece of chalk, their shouts and laughter at odds with their obvious poverty. A young woman sells flowers from a basket, her call of violets, fresh violets, rising above the general din of carriage wheels and hoofbeats. And everywhere, the invisible people, the homeless, the beggars, the down and out, weaving between the more fortunate, seeking opportunities, shelter, survival. You're one of them now, no different from the old man searching through rubbish for something salvageable, or the woman with a baby huddled in a doorway across the street. Yet today, with work found and money in your pocket, you feel the fragile hope that perhaps you won't always be among their number. Perhaps, like the toothless young man at Covent Garden, you can find your way back to a room, a job, a life that doesn't revolve entirely around the next meal or night's shelter. The church bells strike 3 hours yet until the shelters open. With nothing better to do, you begin walking again, this time with no particular destination in mind. London unfolds around you, a city of stark contrasts. Mansion and hovel, feast and famine, all within sight of each other. Turning into a narrow street, you come upon a sight that stops you cold. A group of men in the uniform of the workhouse, coarse grey clothing that marks them as inmates, breaking stones under the watchful eye of a supervisor. Their faces are gaunt, their movements mechanical, their expressions uniformly empty. This is the fate William spoke of with such fear, the workhouse, Victorian England's solution to poverty. For the able-bodied poor, it offers shelter and food in exchange for hard, often pointless labour designed more to punish than to rehabilitate. For families, it means separation, men, women and children housed in different sections, allowed to see each other only at designated times, if at all. The stonebreakers don't look up as you pass. Whatever individuality they once possessed has been ground out of them by the workhouse system, designed explicitly to make receiving help so unpleasant that only the truly desperate would seek it. You walk faster, irrationally afraid that someone might mistake you for a runaway inmate and drag you into that grey, hopeless existence. The workhouse represents the final surrender of freedom, the admission that survival on the streets has become impossible. Better the penny sit-up, the 2-penny hangover, even sleeping rough, than that living death. Turning a corner, you nearly collide with a constable, one of London's bobbies in his distinctive uniform. He steadies you with a hand that quickly becomes a restraining grip when he notices your ragged appearance. And where might you be heading in such a hurry, sir? You reply, keeping your tone respectful. The police are generally not kind to the homeless, empowered by vagrancy laws to arrest anyone who appears to be sleeping rough or begging. He studies you, taking in your dirty clothes and unshaven face. Got any means of support? Any money? Yes, sir, you say truthfully. Worked at Covent Garden this morning. Got 4p for the shelter tonight. Let's see it then. You carefully extract your precious coins, showing them on your palm. The constable grunts, somewhat disappointed at being unable to arrest you for vagrancy. All right then. but keep moving. No loitering, no sitting on doorsteps, no begging. Understand? Yes, sir. Thank you, sir. He releases you with a small shove that's just on the edge of being assault. Off with you then. You walk away, feeling his eyes on your back until you turn the next corner. That was close. The laws are designed to criminalize the condition of being poor and homeless rather than address its causes. A night in jail might mean losing your place at Covent Garden tomorrow, setting you back just when you found a foothold. As afternoon slides into evening, the temperature drops sharply. Your inadequate clothing does little against the bitter cold that seeps into your bones. The bread and cheese from the charity are long gone, the apple saved for later. Your stomach reminds you that one small meal is hardly enough after a morning of hard labour, but food will have to wait. Shelter is the priority now. With the coffin shelter not opening for hours yet, you need somewhere to keep warm until then. Public houses, pubs, are an option, but publicans are quick to throw out anyone who doesn't keep buying drinks. Libraries and museums close early. Churches lock their doors against the very people who most need sanctuary. Eventually, you find a spot in the corner of a cheap coffee house where a penny buys you a cup of something brown and warm that might charitably be called coffee and the right to sit for as long as you nurse it. The place is filled with others like you, the poor, but not destitute, people with just enough to avoid the worst fates, but not enough for any real comfort. The man across from you has the ink-stained fingers of a clerk or printer. His clothes are worn but carefully mended, his collar frayed but clean. He catches your eye and nods slightly. One survivor recognizing another. Waiting for the coffins, he asks quietly. You nod, surprised at his perception. Thought so. Know the look. Did 3 months in them myself last winter after I lost my position at the printing house, saved up enough for a room eventually. He sips his coffee with the deliberate slowness of someone making it last. You'll get there too, if you're careful. Any advice? You ask. He considers. Save every penny. Don't drink. Gin's a false friend. Find regular work if you can. Covent Garden, the docks, anywhere that needs strong backs daily. And he leans closer. Find something to hold on to. Something that reminds you you're a person, not just a body needing shelter. Like what? He reaches into his pocket and pulls out a small, worn book. Poetry, for me, saved my sanity on the worst nights. Doesn't have to be books, a skill, a memory, a hope, something they can't take from you. It's good advice. On the streets, it's easy to lose yourself, to become defined entirely by your desperate circumstances rather than by who you are beneath the dirt and hunger. Thank you, you say sincerely. He nods and returns to his coffee, the brief moment of connection over, but somehow sustaining nonetheless. Outside, darkness has fallen fully, the winter night claiming London early. Gas lamps create islands of sickly yellow light amid the general gloom. The temperature has dropped further, your breath clouding before you as you finally leave the coffee house, its meagre warmth no longer worth the suspicious glares of the proprietor. Time to head toward the shelter. The 4-penny coffin on Whitechapel Road opens at 8, and it's best to be there early to ensure a place. They fill quickly, especially in cold weather. As you walk, you notice other homeless people moving in the same direction, a silent procession of the desperate, all seeking the same basic comfort of lying flat for the night. Some you recognize from previous nights, the old soldier missing an arm, the woman with the hollow-cheeked baby, the boy who looks too young to be alone. Approaching the shelter, you see the queue has already formed despite the early hour. You take your place, stamping your feet against the cold, blowing on your hands to keep the feeling in your fingers. The woman ahead of you turns, revealing a face you recognize. Martha from the Two-Penny Hangover. She looks surprised, then pleased to see you. "Didn't expect to see you here," she says. "Thought you'd be at the hangover again." "Got lucky with work," you explain. "Covent Garden had crates needing unloading." She nods approvingly. "Good for you. Better night's sleep in the coffins, that's certain. What about you? How'd you manage fourpence?" A shadow crosses her face. "Sold my wedding ring. Last thing of value I had. Kept it through 3 years on the streets, but..." She shrugs. "Cold's coming on hard. Needed proper rest." The sacrifice speaks volumes. Martha has given up her final connection to her former life, her dignity, her identity as someone's wife, for the simple comfort of lying flat for a night. "I'm sorry," you say inadequately. "Don't be. Just metal in the end. Can't eat it, can't sleep on it." But there's a hollowness to her voice that belies the practical words. The queue shuffles forward slowly. Each person hands over their precious fourpence, receives a ticket and disappears inside. When your turn comes, you feel an absurd surge of pride as you hand over the coins, earned through honest work, not begged or stolen. Inside, the room of coffins is much as you remember it. Row upon row of wooden boxes on the floor, each barely large enough for an adult to lie in. The smell of unwashed bodies and musty straw permeates the air, but after 2 nights of sitting up or hanging over a rope, the sight of these crude beds is welcome. You find an empty coffin and settle in, your body sighing with relief as you stretch out flat. The wooden sides rise around you, creating the unsettling coffin-like appearance that gives these beds their name, but also providing a small measure of privacy, a precious commodity for the homeless. Martha finds a spot nearby and gives you a small nod before lying down. Around you, others are doing the same, easing aching bodies onto hard wood, arranging meagre possessions, preparing for the closest thing to proper rest available to London's poorest. You pull the apple from your pocket, your luxury saved for this moment. The first bite is crisp and sweet, the juice a blessing to your parched mouth. You eat slowly, savouring each bite, aware of envious glances from those around you. Food in the shelters is a rare sight, usually consumed before entering to avoid theft. When you've eaten down to the core, you notice a small boy watching you from a nearby coffin. He can't be more than 10, though hardship has aged his face beyond his years. Without a word, you offer him the core, still containing a few bites of flesh around the seeds. He snatches it with a quick, furtive movement like a sparrow darting for crumbs and retreats to his coffin to gnaw the remaining fruit from the core. The simple transaction, neither charity nor theft but something in between, is typical of life at society's edges. As night deepens, the room settles into the familiar sounds of communal sleeping. Coughing, snoring, the rustle of bodies, shifting on straw, muffled conversations. The gas lamps are turned low, casting the space in a dim, ghostly light that makes the rows of coffins appear even more sepulchral. Despite the hard wood beneath you and the thin layer of straw that does little to cushion it, sleep comes more easily than in the penny sit-up or 2-penny hangover. The simple luxury of lying flat allows your body to truly rest, muscles relaxing after days of enforced sitting or hanging. You dream of Covent Garden, of endless crates that need moving, but in the dream, each crate contains something different. Bread, coins, clean clothes, all the things that represent security and comfort to the homeless. You stack them higher and higher, building a fortress against the cold and hunger that constantly threaten. A sharp cry wakes you sometime in the deep night. A woman a few coffins away sits upright, eyes wide with some night terror. The watchman moves toward her, but she's already settling back, murmuring apologies, returning to her uneasy sleep. These moments are common in the shelters, the accumulated traumas of street life erupting in dreams, the thin barrier between sleep and wakefulness easily pierced by memories of hunger, cold, violence, loss. You lie awake for a while after that, listening to the sounds of the room, thinking about the printer's words in the coffee house. Find something to hold on to, something that reminds you you're a person, not just a body needing shelter. What do you have left? No possessions of value, no connections to your former life. But there are the small victories, the work at Covent Garden, the promise of more tomorrow, the knowledge that others have climbed out of this pit penny by bloody penny, the human connections, brief but real, with William and Martha, Jack and George, even Sarah the crawler with her matter-of-fact acceptance of her fate. These are the things you can hold on to. Not objects, but experiences. Proof that you're still human, still fighting, still moving like Jack's shark, refusing to surrender to the current that would drag you down to Sarah's immobility. Morning comes too soon, announced by a bell, and the harsh voice of the night watchman. Up and out, 15 minutes to clear the building. Around you, people stir reluctantly, bodies protesting the return to vertical after the brief respite of horizontal rest. Martha catches your eye as she rises, giving you a small nod that somehow communicates both solidarity and resignation. Another day, another struggle for survival. Outside, the morning is clear and bitterly cold, frost silvering the cobblestones and rooftops. Your breath clouds before you as you join the stream of humanity pouring out of the shelter back onto London's unforgiving streets. Covent Garden again, Martha asks, falling into step beside you. You nod. If they'll have me. You? Thought I'd try the laundries. Sometimes they need extra hands when someone's sick. The work she's describing is brutal. Hours of standing in steam and harsh chemicals, hands raw from lye soap and hot water, lungs choked with fumes, but it's indoors and it pays. Good luck, you tell her sincerely, and you. She hesitates, then adds, maybe see you tonight. Hope not, you reply, following the traditional response. Hope you find better. She smiles slightly. Always hoping. It's what keeps us going. With that, she turns away, another solitary figure in the vast, indifferent city, seeking a day's work and another night's shelter. You make your way toward Covent Garden, your body less sore than after the penny sit-up or two-penny hangover, but still aching from the hard wood of the coffin. The cold bites through your inadequate clothing, but the promise of work, of more pennies toward tonight's shelter and food, drives you forward. The market is already bustling when you arrive, the same controlled chaos as yesterday. You find the foreman who hired you standing by a wagon piled with crates of winter vegetables, turnips, potatoes, cabbages. Back again, he says, recognizing you. Good. Could use a reliable pair of hands, same as yesterday. Penny an hour, payment at end of shift. The work is identical to the day before. Lift, carry, stack, repeat. But today you pace yourself as the toothless young man showed you, conserving energy, finding a rhythm that's sustainable. Your muscles, though sore, remember the movements and the labour is marginally easier. During a brief pause while the foreman confers with a vendor, the young man from yesterday appears beside you. Made it back, I see, he observes. Determined, aren't you? Need the money, you reply simply. He nods, understanding completely. Keep it up, they'll start asking for you by name. That's when things get better. Regular work, regular pay, might even get tuppence an hour instead of a penny once they know you're reliable. The prospect of doubling your earnings sends a surge of hope through you. Tuppence an hour would mean 8p for a morning's work, enough for the coffin, food, and still something to save toward better lodgings. How long did it take you, you ask, to get out of the shelters? He considers. 6 months of regular work, saved every penny I could, found 2 others to share a room, cuts the cost to something almost manageable, still hand to mouth most days, but he glances around, then lowers his voice. Got a proper bed now, with a mattress. After the coffins, feels like sleeping on clouds. A proper bed. The simple luxury seems almost unimaginable after nights on benches, ropes and wooden boxes, yet this man has achieved it through persistence and careful saving. Perhaps you can too. The foreman returns, ending the conversation, but the young man's words stay with you as you continue working. 6 months, half a year of daily labour, penny by penny. A daunting prospect, but not impossible. Not if the work holds out. Not if you're careful with your earnings. By noon, when the shift ends, you've earned another 4p, enough for tonight's coffin again, enough for a small meal. The foreman counts the coins into your palm with a nod that might be approval. Tomorrow, you ask, hopefully, aye, if you're willing, 6 sharp. 2 days of work, 2 nights in the coffins. Small victories, but significant in a world where survival is measured in pennies and inches. With 4p in your pocket and the promise of more tomorrow, you walk away from Covent Garden with something that's been scarce since you found yourself on the streets. Hope. Not the desperate hope of the truly destitute clutching at any possibility, but something more substantial. A plan, a path, a way forward, penny by bloody penny. Unlike your comfortable bed now, with its soft mattress and warm blankets, the 4p coffin was a stark reminder of how precarious life was for the Victorian homeless. Yet even that hard wooden box represented a step up, a small victory in the daily battle for survival. The truly desperate, those who couldn't earn or beg enough for even the penny sit-up, faced the worst challenges of all. They were the ones who slept under bridges, in doorways, in parks, constantly moved along by police, exposed to the elements and the dangers of the night. They were the ones who might, like Sarah the Crawler, eventually stop moving altogether, surrender to immobility, and fade away on London's uncaring streets. But tonight, with work found and pennies earned, you've won another day's reprieve from that fate. Tonight, you'll sleep in a coffin again, and tomorrow, you'll return to Covent Garden, taking one more small step away from the abyss that claims so many of London's homeless. In Victorian London, for the poorest of the poor, sometimes that's the only victory possible. Enduring one more day, surviving one more night, keeping hope alive against all odds. A week passes in this fashion. Each morning you rise from your wooden coffin and make your way to Covent Garden. Each day you lift and carry until your muscles scream, earning your 4p for the next night's shelter. Each evening you return to the coffin house, taking your place among London's homeless, but feeling the small distinction of being among those who can afford to lie flat for the night. It's a grinding existence, but compared to the penny sit-up or the 2p hangover, let alone sleeping rough, it's almost comfortable, and more importantly, it's stable. The work at Covent Garden has proven reliable. The foreman now nodding with recognition when you appear each morning. You've become one of the regulars, the men he counts on when there are crates to be moved. You've made connections too, not friends exactly, but people who recognise you, who save you a place in the queue at the shelter, who share information about work or charity distributions. These small alliances are vital currency among the homeless, the difference sometimes between survival and disaster. The toothless young man at Covent Garden, you've learned his name is Tom, has become something of a mentor, showing you the tricks of conserving energy, avoiding injury, making yourself valuable to the foreman. They're giving you the eye, he tells you one morning, nodding toward a group of men in better clothes who stand at the edge of the market, observing the workers. Who are they, you ask? Railway men, looking for navvies for the new line they're building out of Paddington. Hard work, but steady. Live in camps along the route. 3 shillings a week they pay. 3 shillings, 36 pennies, nearly as much as you earn in 9 days at Covent Garden. Enough to save toward real lodgings, perhaps even better clothes that might open doors to more respectable employment. You think they'd take me, you ask, acutely aware of your ragged appearance. Tom shrugs. They don't care what you look like, only how strong your back is, and yours has proven sturdy enough. He glances at the railway men again. They'll be back tomorrow. Clean yourself up as best you can. Worth a try, isn't it? It is indeed. That night, at a public pump, you scrub yourself as thoroughly as possible with cold water and the sliver of harsh soap you've purchased with a saved penny. Your clothes remain filthy. The next morning, when the railway men return to Covent Garden, you position yourself where they'll notice you, working steadily, demonstrating your strength and reliability. It's a calculated performance, and it works. One of them approaches as you set down a particularly heavy crate. "Looking for work, lad?" he asks without preamble. "Yes, sir," you reply. Railway work, hard labour, long hours, 3 shillings weekly, paid every Saturday, board in the navvy camp, basic food provided. Interested? Your heart leaps, but you keep your expression measured. "Yes, sir, very interested. Be at Paddington Station, West Entrance. 5 o'clock tomorrow morning. Ask for Foreman Jenkins. Don't be late, or the spot goes to someone else." With that, he moves on, already eyeing other potential recruits. You stand there, slightly stunned by the sudden change in your fortunes. Railway work, steady employment, regular pay, even basic accommodation included. It's a step up from the daily uncertainty of Covent Garden. A real chance to save toward better circumstances. When you tell Tom, he grins, showing the gap where his front tooth should be. "Told you they were looking. Railway work got me my start too 3 years back. Saved enough for proper lodgings after 6 months. I'll miss your advice," you tell him sincerely. He claps you on the shoulder. "You'll do fine. Remember what I taught you. Pace yourself, make yourself valuable, save every penny you can." He hesitates, then adds, "And don't forget where you came from. Some get a bit of money and suddenly can't see those still in the coffins." It's a common enough phenomenon, the recently risen looking away from those still struggling, partly from shame at their former condition, partly from fear of being dragged back down. But you make a silent promise not to be one of them. How could you forget William with his consumption, Martha who sold her wedding ring, Sarah the crawler with her vacant eyes? That night, in the 4-penny coffin, you find it hard to sleep despite your physical exhaustion. Tomorrow represents a real turning point, away from the daily scramble for shelter and food, towards something approaching stability, not prosperity certainly. Railway navvies live hard lives and die young from accidents, exposure, and the toll of brutal labour, but a step up nonetheless from the precarious existence of the casual labourer. Around you, the shelter settles into its nightly rhythm of coughs, snores, and muffled conversations. These sounds have become familiar over the past week, almost comforting in their predictability. You'll miss this strange community, you realise, not the hardship or discomfort, but the shared experience, the unspoken understanding among those who know what it means to live at the very edge of survival. Morning comes with its usual jarring bell and shouted orders to vacate the building. You gather your few possessions, an extra shirt acquired from a charity distribution, a stub of pencil, a scrap of paper on which you've been keeping track of your earnings and expenses. Everything you own wrapped in a bundle no bigger than your two hands together. Outside, the pre-dawn air is bitter with winter's approach. Frost covers the cobblestones, making them treacherous underfoot. Your breath clouds before you as you set off toward Paddington Station, leaving behind the familiar streets of the East End for a new chapter in your story. The walk takes nearly an hour, your pace quickened by anxiety about being late. London is different at this hour, quieter, the usual cacophony of commerce not yet begun, the streets populated mainly by those who work before the city properly wakes, bakers, market porters, night soilmen finishing their rounds. Paddington Station looms impressive against the lightening sky, its grand arched roof a testament to Victorian engineering and ambition. You find the west entrance where a group of men have already gathered, 30 or more, all with the same hollow-cheeked, desperate look as yourself. All hoping for work, for the chance to earn 3 shillings a week and a place to sleep that isn't a wooden coffin. A burly man with a ledger moves among them, checking names, issuing orders. This must be Foreman Jenkins. You approach cautiously when there's a gap in the crowd around him. "Excuse me, sir. I was told to ask for you about railway work. Man at Covent Garden sent me." He looks you up and down, assessing your strength, your potential usefulness. "Name?" You give it, watching as he writes it in his ledger. "Ever done railway work before?" "No, sir, but I'm strong and I learn quick." He grunts, neither impressed nor disappointed. "We'll see. Fall in with the others. Transport leaves in 10 minutes. You join the group of recruits, feeling both relief at being accepted and trepidation about what lies ahead. Railway work is notoriously dangerous. Men crushed by falling earth, blown apart by mishandled explosives, worked to exhaustion in all weathers. But it's also a way out of the desperate hand-to-mouth existence you've been living, a calculated risk. The transport turns out to be a series of open wagons pulled by sturdy horses. You climb aboard with the others, finding space on a rough wooden bench. No one speaks much, all saving their energy for the work ahead, all aware that they're easily replaced if they prove inadequate. The journey takes you west out of London, the city gradually giving way to countryside. For many of the men, including yourself, it's the first time in months or years they've seen open fields, trees not confined to parks, sky not cut into fragments by buildings. There's a palpable sense of wonder, quickly suppressed under the more immediate concerns of survival. By mid-morning, you reach the work site, a long cut through a hillside where the new railway line will run. It's a scene of controlled chaos. Hundreds of men swarm over the earthworks like ants, digging, hauling, building temporary structures to shore up the excavation. The sound is deafening. Picks striking stone, shovels scraping earth, foremen shouting orders, the occasional warning cry before a controlled explosion. Foreman Jenkins divides the new recruits into groups, assigning each to a different part of the operation. You and 5 others are sent to a section where men are digging the roadbed, removing earth and stone to create a level surface for the tracks. "Rawlins here will show you the ropes," Jenkins says, indicating a weather-beaten man of about 50. "Do as he says and you might live through the day." It's not entirely a joke. Railway construction is one of the most dangerous occupations in Victorian England. The death rate among navvies is appalling. Men crushed by falling earth, maimed by tools, killed in explosions, or simply worked to death over time. Rawlins eyes your group without enthusiasm. "Right then, ever handled a pickaxe?" Some nod, Others shake their heads. You're among the latter. Your labour has been of the lifting and carrying variety, not excavation. Christ help me, Rawlins mutters. Basics, then. Pick for breaking up the earth, shovel for moving it, fill the barrows, wheel them to the dump site, come back for more. Simple enough even for you lot to grasp. You nod along with the others, eager to prove your willingness, if not your skill. Good. Tools there, barrows there, get to it. Quotas 6 feet of roadbed cleared by sundown. The work is unlike anything you've experienced before, not just physically demanding, though it certainly is that, but requiring a particular technique to be effective. Your first attempts with the pickaxe are clumsy, the tool feeling unwieldy in your hands, your strikes barely denting the packed earth. Like this, says the man next to you, demonstrating the proper swing, a fluid motion that uses the weight of the tool and the momentum of your body rather than just arm strength. Let the pick do the work. You copy his technique, finding it immediately more effective and less exhausting. Thanks, you say gratefully. He nods, already back to his own work. Out here, men help each other because it's practical. An inefficient worker slows everyone down, puts the quota at risk. It's cooperation born of necessity rather than charity. The hours blur together, marked only by the gradually shifting position of the sun. There's a brief break at midday. Cold tea and bread with a smear of dripping eaten standing up, then back to work until the light begins to fade. By the end of the day, your hands are raw despite the calluses built up at Covent Garden, your back a single knot of pain, your entire body trembling with exhaustion. But the section has met its quota, 6 feet of roadbed cleared and ready for the next phase of construction. Not bad for first day, Rawlins acknowledges grudgingly. Those still standing can come back tomorrow. Rest of you, this to 2 men who've collapsed from exhaustion, back to London with you. You're still standing, barely. The work has pushed you to your absolute limit, but you've survived it. One day closer to that first week's pay, to the 3 shillings that represent a real step away from destitution. As darkness falls, you follow the other workers to the navvy camp, a collection of rough wooden huts set up near the work site to house the men. Each hut accommodates 20 men sleeping on narrow platforms built along the walls with a central stove for heat and cooking. It's basic accommodation, certainly, but compared to the penny sit-up, the 2-penny hangover, or even the 4-penny coffin, it feels almost luxurious. A roof that doesn't come with the constant threat of expulsion, a place to sleep that's yours by right of work rather than charity, heat without having to pay extra for it. The food, too, is a step up from what you've become accustomed to. A pot of stew bubbling on the stove, thick with vegetables, and even small pieces of meat with bread for sopping up the gravy. After a week of tea and bread, occasional soup when you could afford it. It's a feast. You eat ravenously, your body demanding fuel after the day's exertion. Around you, the other men do the same, conversation minimal until the edge of hunger is blunted. Afterward, some men produce pipes or cigarettes, the smoke adding to the already thick air in the hut. Others play cards or dice, wagering precious pennies from previous work. A few simply collapse onto their sleeping platforms, too exhausted for anything but rest. You find your assigned spot, a platform with a thin mattress of straw covered by a rough blanket, and sit, taking stock of your new situation. The work is harder than Covent Garden, certainly, but the rewards are greater too, not just the 3 shillings weekly, but the security of knowing where you'll sleep, what you'll eat, that tomorrow holds the same certainty. For the homeless of Victorian London, such security is rare and precious. The daily scramble for shelter, for pennies to buy food and a place in the sit-up or hangover or coffin takes a toll beyond the physical hardship. It's the mental strain of constant uncertainty, of never knowing if today is the day you'll fail to find work, fail to earn enough, be forced to sleep on the streets where the police move you hourly and the cold might claim your life. Here, at least, you know what tomorrow holds. Back-breaking labour, yes, but also food, shelter, payment at week's end, a foundation upon which to build something better, perhaps. The man on the platform next to yours turns out to be the one who showed you how to use the pickaxe. In the better light of the hut, you can see he's older than you first thought, perhaps 50, with a network of deep wrinkles weathered into his face and grey threading his beard. "First time on the railway?" he asks. You nod. "Was at Covent Garden before, market porter." He nods, understanding. Market work's not bad when you can get it. Steadier here, though, even if the work's harder. "How long have you been doing this?" you ask. "Railway work? 15 years or so, started on the Great Western Line. Been moving with the work ever since." He extends a calloused hand. "Daniel?" You shake it, giving your own name in return. "Word of advice," Daniel says, lowering his voice. "Save what you can from your pay. Put by something every week, no matter how small. Railway work doesn't last forever. Line gets built, they don't need as many men. Having a bit saved makes the difference between finding the next job and ending up back in the London shelters." It's good advice, similar to what Tom at Covent Garden told you. The key to escaping the cycle of poverty is not just earning, but saving, building a buffer against the inevitable setbacks. That's the plan, you assure him. Save toward proper lodgings eventually. He nods approval. Smart. Done it myself a few times over the years. Had rooms in Bristol, Birmingham, Manchester. Life happens though. Injury, illness, work drying up. End up back on the road looking for the next job. He says this without self-pity, simply stating the precarious reality of working-class life in Victorian England. Around you, the hut gradually quiets as men succumb to exhaustion. The day starts early on the railway, and tomorrow will bring the same punishing labour as today. Rest is a practical necessity, not a luxury. You lie down on your platform, pulling the rough blanket over you. It's scratchy and smells of previous occupants, but it's warm, and the straw mattress, thin as it is, cushions your aching body better than the wooden box of the four-penny coffin. Sleep comes quickly, your exhausted body overriding any discomfort or unfamiliarity. Your last conscious thought is a comparison. A week ago, you were sitting upright all night in the penny sit-up, fighting sleep while a monitor prowled with his stick. Now you lie on a mattress, however thin, with a blanket and a roof that won't be yanked away at dawn. Small steps, but in the right direction. The days fall into a rhythm. Up before dawn, a breakfast of bread and tea, then to the work site for hours of grueling labour, broken only by a brief midday meal, then back to the camp at dusk, dinner and collapse into exhausted sleep. Repeat. It's a hard life. No question. Your body aches constantly. Your hands develop blisters that break and form calluses, only to blister again in new places. The work is dangerous too. You witness one man crushed when a section of earth collapses, another lose fingers to a misplaced strike of a sledgehammer. But for all its hardships, it's a step up from homelessness in London. Here, you're valued for your labour rather than despised for your poverty. Here, you have a place, a purpose, a path forward. Saturday brings the promised payment, 3 shillings handed over by Foreman Jenkins, who checks your name in his ledger with the same impassive efficiency with which he oversees the work. 3 shillings, 36 pennies. more money than you've held at once since finding yourself on the streets. The other men head immediately for the makeshift pub set up near the camp, a tent where a shrewd entrepreneur sells watered beer and gin to navvies eager to forget their aches and pains for a few hours. It's a common pattern among railway workers: earn hard, drink hard, end the week with empty pockets, and begin the cycle again. But you remember the advice from Daniel, from Tom at Covent Garden: save what you can, build a buffer, break the cycle. So, instead of following the others to the pub, you find a quiet corner of the hut and carefully divide your money. 1 shilling, 12 pennies, for immediate needs like soap, a new shirt from the peddler who visits the camp weekly, perhaps some tobacco as a small luxury. The remaining 2 shillings go into a pouch you wear around your neck, hidden beneath your clothes, the beginning of your escape fund. Daniel notices your abstention from the general drinking and nods approval when he passes. Smart lad, they'll be moaning tomorrow with sore heads and empty pockets while you're a step closer to something better. The weeks pass in this fashion. Work, save, repeat. Your body adapts to the brutal labour, muscles hardening, hands callousing to the point where blisters are rare. You learn the rhythms of railway construction, the techniques that make the work more efficient and less likely to result in injury. And your savings grow. By the end of the first month, you have 8 shillings hidden away, more money than you've possessed at once since becoming homeless. By the second month, it's 16 shillings, not enough yet for a real change in circumstances, but growing steadily. You make connections too, not just with Daniel, who becomes something of a mentor, but with other men who share your determination to improve your situation. There's Williams, a Welshman saving to bring his wife and children from Cardiff once he finds proper lodgings. There's Higgins, who dreams of opening a small cobbler's shop with his brother. There's O'Brien, who sends half his pay home to Ireland each week to support elderly parents. These men become a kind of community, bound by shared goals and the mutual support that comes from recognizing a kindred spirit. You share information about jobs, about cheap lodgings in various cities, about which foremen are fair and which will cheat you if given the chance. Winter deepens, bringing new challenges. The work continues regardless of weather. Railway companies have schedules to meet, investors to satisfy. You dig through frozen earth, haul materials through snow, endure bitter winds that cut through your inadequate clothing like knives. But the navvy camp, for all its roughness, provides better shelter than the London streets. The huts have stoves that burn constantly in the coldest weather. The food, while basic, is regular and sufficient to fuel hard labour. And most importantly, you don't have to earn your place anew each day. It's secured by your work, your contribution to the project. You think often of those you left behind in London: William with his consumption, Martha who sold her wedding ring, Sarah the crawler waiting for death by her wall. Did William survive the winter? Did Martha find regular work at the laundry? Does Sarah still watch babies for pennies? Or has the cold finally claimed her? You'll never know. London is vast, its homeless population constantly shifting, individuals appearing and disappearing like figures in a fog. Your paths crossed briefly, then diverged, yours upward, theirs continuing on their precarious horizontal trajectory, or perhaps downward toward the inevitable end that awaits so many of London's poor. The railway work continues through winter and into spring. The line progresses steadily eastward, the navvy camp moving with it, a mobile village of men and the few hardy women who follow the work. Cooks, laundresses, the occasional wife or camp follower. By April, your savings have grown to £2, 480 pennies, a small fortune by the standards of your former life, enough for a deposit on humble lodgings, for decent clothes that might open doors to better employment, for a buffer against misfortune. And then comes the news you've been both expecting and dreading. This section of the line is nearing completion. Half the workforce will be let go at the end of the week, the rest moving on to the next section further west. Foreman Jenkins delivers the news with his usual impassivity. Those staying on will be notified Friday. Rest of you get your final pay and your papers for the next job if you want it. Paddington office has the details. The camp buzzes with speculation. Who will stay? Who will go? What new projects are starting that might need experienced navvies? For many, it's an anxious time. For you, it represents a crossroads. You could follow the railway work, moving west with the line, continuing the life you've established these past months. The work is hard but reliable, the pay steady, the company of men like Daniel and Williams familiar and supportive. Or you could return to London with your savings, seek better lodgings and employment, try to establish yourself more permanently in the city. It's riskier, the spectre of falling back into homelessness always present, but potentially offers more in the long term. You discuss the options with Daniel one evening as the hut settles around you. What would you do, you ask? Stay with the railway or try London again? He considers, pipe smoke wreathing his weathered face. Depends what you want, lad. Railway's steady work if you're fit and careful. Move with the lines, always knowing where your next meal's coming from. But it's no life for settling, for family, for putting down roots. And London? More opportunity, more risk, might find better work, might end up back in the penny sit-up if things go wrong. £2 gives you a start, but it won't last forever. Need to find good lodgings, steady work, keep saving. It's not a clear answer, but then there isn't one. Each choice has its merits and dangers. The safe option versus the ambitious one. Continued improvement within narrow bounds versus the chance for something better or worse. You sleep on the decision, weighing the options as you lie on your straw mattress, listening to the sounds of the camp, snoring men, distant singing from those still drinking, the crackle of the stove as it burns down for the night. By morning, your mind is made up. You'll return to London, not to the East End with its desperate poverty and coffin shelters, but to seek lodgings in a working-class area where your savings might secure a room, where your experience and newfound strength might find employment beyond casual labour. Friday brings the final payroll. Your name is not among those staying with the project. Not surprising, as you're still relatively new compared to men who've been with the railway for years, but Jenkins hands you your 3 shillings along with a slip of paper. Reference, he explains briefly. You're a good worker. Show that to any railway foreman. They'll likely take you on. It's an unexpected boon, a testament to your reliability, a credential that might open doors to future employment if needed. You thank him, carefully folding the paper and tucking it away with your savings. Saturday morning, you bid farewell to the men who've been your companions these past months. Daniel in particular seems sorry to see you go. Mind how you go in London, he advises gruffly. City's got sharp teeth for the unwary. Keep some money hidden away. Always have a backup plan. Don't trust those promising easy fortune. I'll remember, you assure him, and thanks for everything. He nods, uncomfortable with gratitude. Just passing on what others taught me. You do the same when you can. With that, you shoulder your small bundle of possessions, now including a second shirt, sturdy boots, a woolen scarf against the lingering spring chill, and begin the walk back toward London. You could take the public coach, but that would cost precious shillings from your savings. Better to walk, even if it takes most of the day. The countryside in April is a revelation after months of winter. Green fields, trees budding, wildflowers appearing in hedgerows. You walk at an easy pace, your body hardened by months of labour, enjoying the simple pleasure of movement without urgency or fear. By late afternoon, London appears on the horizon, a smudge of darker grey against the sky, the smoke from countless chimneys creating a perpetual cloud above the city. As you draw closer, the pastoral quiet gives way to the increasing noise and bustle of outer London. Cart traffic, street vendors, the general hum of human activity. Your first priority is lodgings, not in the East End with its coffin shelters and penny sit-ups, but somewhere more respectable where working men can afford small but decent rooms. You head for Bermondsey, south of the river, where you've heard such accommodation might be found. After inquiring at several boarding houses, you find one on a narrow but clean street where the landlady, a stern-faced widow, looks you over with a critical eye before agreeing to show you the available room. It's small, just space for a narrow bed, a chair and a small table, but it's clean with a window that allows actual daylight, and most importantly, it's private. No coffin in a room with 50 others, no bench shared with coughing strangers, but a space that would be yours alone. 5 shillings weekly, paid each Saturday, the landlady states. Includes use of the kitchen for breakfast and evening meal. You provide your own food. No drinking, no women, no coming in after 10. Take it or leave it. 5 shillings weekly, almost double your railway pay. But you have your savings, enough to cover several weeks while you find work. And the privacy, the security, the step up from homelessness, these are worth the cost. I'll take it, you say. Can I move in today? She nods, holding out her hand for the first week's payment, which you provide from your carefully guarded savings. Rooms at the top of the stairs, last door on the right, privies in the yard, kitchen hours are posted downstairs. And just like that, you have a home. Not grand, not even particularly comfortable, but yours by right of payment rather than charity. A door you can close, a bed that doesn't require pennies each night, a place where the police won't move you along, where monitors won't prod you awake, where you're a tenant rather than a supplicant. The room is bare but clean, plain whitewashed walls, worn but swept floorboards, a bed with an actual mattress, thin but still luxury compared to straw over wood, a wash basin on the small table. You set down your bundle, the sum total of your worldly possessions, and sit on the edge of the bed, overcome for a moment by the enormity of the change in your circumstances. 3 months ago, you were fighting sleep on a bench in the penny sit-up, one of London's countless homeless, invisible to respectable society, one misfortune away from total destitution. Now you have a room, savings still in your pouch, references that might lead to steady work, clothes that don't immediately mark you as destitute. It's not security, not yet. The room costs 5 shillings weekly, and your savings won't last forever. You need work, preferably something steadier and less punishing than railway construction or market porterage. But it's a foundation, a platform from which to build something better. The next days are spent in careful planning and searching. You buy basic provisions, bread, cheese, tea, and onion for flavour, economising to stretch your savings. You clean yourself thoroughly at the public baths, wash your clothes, make yourself as presentable as possible for seeking employment. And you walk mile after mile through London's working-class districts, inquiring at workshops, factories, warehouses, anywhere that might need labour more skilled than casual porterage but not requiring formal apprenticeship or education. The railway reference proves valuable, marking you as reliable and strong, opening doors that might otherwise remain closed. By the end of the week, you've secured a position at a warehouse near the docks. Not glamorous work, but steady, with regular hours and pay that will cover your room and basic needs while allowing a small amount for continued saving. It's a beginning, not an end to struggle. The working poor of Victorian London live perpetually on the edge, one illness or injury away from destitution, but a step firmly away from the abyss of homelessness, from the penny sit-ups and two-penny hangovers and four-penny coffins that were your world just months ago. One evening, walking back to your lodgings after work, you pass a familiar figure huddled in a doorway, an old man with a hacking cough that can only be consumption. For a moment, you think it might be William from the penny sit-up, but as you draw closer, you see it's a stranger with the same hollow-cheeked look of terminal illness and homelessness. Still, the encounter prompts you to pause, to crouch down beside the man. "You all right, friend?" you ask, the question feeling inadequate even as you voice it. He looks up with rheumy eyes, suspicious at first, then softening slightly at your concerned expression. "Been better," he manages between coughs. "Been worse too." You reach into your pocket, extracting a few pennies. Not enough to change his circumstances, but perhaps enough for a night in a sit-up, a hot meal, a brief respite from the street. "Here," you say, pressing the coins into his grimy hand. "Get yourself in somewhere tonight. Weather's turning cold." He stares at the money, then at you, recognition dawning in his eyes. Not of you personally, but of what you represent. Someone who's been where he is, who understands. "Bless you," he says simply, the coins disappearing into some hidden pocket with the swift instinct of the long-term homeless. You nod and rise, continuing on your way, the encounter staying with you as you climb the stairs to your small room. You think of William, of Martha, of Sarah the crawler, of all those still out there, still fighting for survival penny by penny, night by night. You were lucky. Luckier than most. The work at Covent Garden, the railway opportunity, your own physical strength and determination, the absence of illness or injury that might have derailed your progress at any point. So many factors had to align for you to make it from the penny sit-up to this modest room, this steady job. For thousands of others, that luck never comes. They remain trapped in the cycle of desperate poverty, of daily scrambles for food and shelter, until illness, injury, or the simple wearing down of body and spirit claims them. They die in doorways, under bridges, in workhouse infirmaries, anonymous and unmourned except perhaps by others in the same predicament. This knowledge doesn't diminish your achievement or suggest you shouldn't continue striving for better circumstances, but it reminds you of the razor-thin line between survival and disaster in Victorian London, of how easily you might have remained on the other side of that line. In your small room, you light the candle you've purchased, a simple luxury that means you're not forced into bed by darkness, and sit at the little table taking stock of your situation. Your savings, while diminished by the first week's rent and necessities, remain substantial by the standards of your former life. Your job, while demanding, provides steady income that will maintain this modest foothold in respectability. Your health, bolstered by regular meals and proper shelter, is better than it's been in months. It's not the end of struggle, not by any means. Victorian London offers little security for the working poor, little protection against the vicissitudes of illness, economic downturns, or simple bad luck. But it's a beginning, a foundation upon which to build something resembling stability. As you prepare for bed, an actual bed with sheets and a pillow, yours by right rather than charity, you think about how far you've come from the penny sit-up, the two-penny hangover, the four-penny coffin. Those experiences will always be part of you, informing your understanding of just how precarious life can be, just how easily one can fall through the cracks of society. but they're behind you now, steps on a journey upward from the depths of homelessness to this modest room, this chance at a more secure existence. Not luxury, not ease, but dignity. The simple dignity of privacy, of shelter that doesn't require daily payment, of work that's valued and fairly compensated. In Victorian London, for someone who's known the penny sit-up and the two-penny hangover and the four-penny coffin, perhaps that's victory enough. As you drift towards sleep in your narrow but private bed, the contrast with those earlier accommodations is stark. No hard bench, no rope cutting into your chest, no wooden box confining your body, just the simple luxury of lying flat on a real mattress covered by actual sheets in a room where no one will prod you awake or cut a rope at dawn. Unlike your comfortable position right now, with your soft mattress and warm blankets, the Victorian homeless faced a nightly battle for the most basic shelter. The penny sit-up, the two-penny hangover, the four-penny coffin, each represented a desperate attempt to avoid the greater dangers of the streets. Each offered minimal comfort at a price that consumed most of what the poorest could earn or beg in a day. For those without even those few pennies, life was harder still, sleeping in doorways until moved along by police, huddling under bridges in all weathers, finding shelter in parks only to be rousted by authorities enforcing vagrancy laws that criminalised the condition of being homeless rather than addressing its causes. The struggle for survival consumed every waking hour. The search for work, for food, for pennies to secure shelter, for charity that didn't demand too much dignity in exchange for help. It was a grinding, exhausting existence that wore down body and spirit until many, like Sarah the Crawler, simply stopped moving, waiting for the inevitable end with a fatalism born of utter exhaustion. Yet even in those desperate circumstances, humanity persisted. William, with his offer of boots he would no longer need. Martha selling her wedding ring for a night of proper rest. The shared jokes in the darkness of the coffin shelter. The small kindnesses. A crust of bread shared, a warning about dangerous areas, advice on where charity might be found. These moments of connection, of recognition between those sharing the same precarious existence, represented the resilience of the human spirit in the face of overwhelming hardship. They were reminders that even at the very bottom of society, people remained people, capable of compassion, of humour, of hope against all evidence that hope was justified. For you, that hope proved warranted. The penny sit-up led to the two-penny hangover, to the four-penny coffin, to work at Covent Garden, to the railway, to this small room with its narrow bed and flickering candle. A journey upward, step by painful step, penny by hard-earned penny. Not everyone was so fortunate. For many, most of Victorian London's homeless, there was no escape from the cycle of desperate poverty, no lucky break, no path to something better. They lived and died on the margins, unseen except as problems to be managed, unheard except in moments of public disturbance, unvalued except as cheap labour when it suited society's needs. Their stories, too, are part of London's history, as much as the grand narratives of empire and industry and progress that dominate official records. The penny sit-ups and two-penny hangovers and four-penny coffins tell a different story about Victorian England, about the human cost of industrialisation, about the failure of charity and poor laws to address the root causes of poverty, about the resilience and desperation of those fighting for survival at the very bottom of society. As you finally drift into sleep in your small but private room that represents such a step up from those earlier accommodations, you carry those stories with you. William's, Martha's, Sarah's and your own. Stories of survival against overwhelming odds, of humanity persisting in the face of dehumanizing circumstances, of hope kept alive even when hope seemed foolish. In Victorian London, for the homeless, sometimes that was the only victory possible, enduring, persisting, refusing to surrender completely to the circumstances that threatened to erase not just comfort and security, but identity itself, holding on to humanity in a world that often denied the humanity of the poor, finding moments of connection, of dignity, of hope, even in the penny sit-up, the 2-penny hangover, the 4-penny coffin. And tonight, as you lie in your comfortable bed listening to this story, perhaps take a moment to appreciate the simple security of shelter, of warmth, of knowing where you'll sleep tomorrow night. These things that seem so basic, so fundamental, were luxuries beyond reach for thousands in Victorian London, and remain so for many in our world today. Sleep well in your warm bed with gratitude for its comfort, and perhaps carry with you a little of the understanding of just how precious, how fundamental that simple security truly is.